Close the doors of your mind. Close the gates of your mind. Close the gates of your palace, your ba'ith, your ahal, your ohel, your mishkan, your mikdash, your haikal. And bring your body to center. Bring your mind to center. Bring your body to center. Within your 12 cranial nerves, within your 12 mullen centers. Within your regal and your yod and your kaf. Within your heart and your mind. Within your yetzer and your imaginations. For today is the day of freedom. Today is the day of Qahalath. Today is the day that Yahuwah has given to us as another Shabath, that we may cease, in the Shabbatun, that we may cease from our labors, that we may continue to eat Chag Matsah, to eat matzah, continually, until the seventh day. Even as this is the seventh day, swore not as rest law word perfection, and one must understand and be the understanding of Yahuwah Elohim. For today we acknowledge the one who made all of the heart of the earth, all in the heart of the earth, all the rivers and streams and all the beings above the earth, above the Shemaims. The one who established the ends of the earth, the one who sits above the mercy seat, Yahuwah Elohim. The one who made all of the heart in the heart of the earth, on the top of the earth, under the earth, and all that comes from his throne. As we sit in the sides of the north, as we sit in the north, and we understand that we sit under his feet, his sapphire throne, under his sapphire feet, knowing that it's just like feet suspended in water. And as we sit under his feet, we continually look at and understand what it's like to be a bod in his kingdom. So as we move forward in the fear, the Yarei Yahuwah, in the fear of Yahuwah, always. So this is the fourth day, 18th, it states the 18th Yom, 18th day of the first month of Nysan, and also it's day 4 of Chag Matsah. Understanding day 4 is important, right? Because we look at everything that people have said in the past 2 days, and everybody believes that they know Yahusha when he is risen on the third day, and not even knowing that on the third day nobody knew who he was. Matter of fact, nobody had the understanding of Bina Hatmada'ath of who he was. They rose on the third day, and nobody knew who he was. And his revelation and who he was and his revealing of who he was took place on the fourth day of Chag Matsah. And that was the understanding that was extended to them. Right, so this is the book of Luke, Oriyah. This is the book of Luke, Oriyah, chapter 24, actually 24 and verse 1. Luke, Oriyah, chapter 24 and verse 1. Luke, Oriyah, actually go to Luke 23. Luke, Oriyah, 23 and verse 50. Luke 23 and verse 50. Luke Oriyah 23 and 50. Now there was a man named Yusuf from the Yahudim town of Arimathea. He was a member of the council. What council? The Sanhedrin. He was a member of the council of the people who were over the people, ruler. A good and righteous man. He was a good and righteous man. Why? Because he said, this is your righteousness if you keep his commandments. So he did that. Who had not consented to their decision and action, and he was looking for the Malkuth of Elohim. So what you looking for? Right? Everybody's looking for the Malkuth. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Yahusha. He went to ask for it. And then he took it down and wrapped it in linen shroud and laid him in a tomb cut in stone. He did what? He laid it in a tomb, cut in stone. And there no one had yet ever been laid. Nobody laid in there. It was a brand new tomb. It was like a virgin, right? Nobody's ever been there. And guess what? It was the day of preparation. Why? What preparation of what? And the Shabath was beginning. So just like any other thing, on the 15th day of the first month, there was a Shabath. Why? Because that first day you're supposed to have a mithra, a Qahalath convocation. And they were keeping the commandments according to the book of Leviticus, chapter 23. Right? And guess what? And the woman who had come with him from Galilee followed and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Why? Because the woman needed to know how to follow in each in order to understand it properly. A woman has to know how to follow in each in order to understand it properly. If she refuses, then guess what? She doesn't understand it properly. And guess what it says? Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. Then they would what? Then they what? Returned and prepared spices and ointments for what? on the Shabath day, they rested according to the commandment. See, you got to keep the commandments in order to understand it. First, you got to be looking for the Malkuth. You got to keep the commandments. You got to be a righteous man. Then the woman has to be righteous and follow you. And then you got to take commandments of preparing spices and ointment. And then you got to keep the Shabbat according to the commandment on the 15th day in order to understand it properly. That's the only way you're going to do it. If you do it outside of that, then it's any Mashiach. But guess what? Then you go to chapter 24. Luke chapter 24, verse 1. Luke 24 and 1. Oriah 24 and 1. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they went to the tomb, taking the spices they had prepared. What do you mean the first day of the week? They say, man, that was the first day of the week after the Shabbat, right? You know how they say the first day of the week. No, it was a timeline that actually ended up hitting on the first day of the week. It was a timeline of Chag Matsah that had a double Shabbat, which was an appointed time, which you would never have. When that happens, right? But that actually happened during this time. But guess what it said? Taking the spices they had prepared, and they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. They found it. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. Why? What time did they get up? Early dawn. So if you ain't an early morning person, that means before the sun rises. So when was the sun made? When was the sun created? Go to Bereshit, go to Genesis. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 15. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14. Genesis, Bereshit chapter 1, verse 14. And Elohim said, let there be lights in the expanse of the Shamayim to separate the day from the night. Separate Yom from Leil, from night. And let them be for signs, Ayo, for Mu'ed, seasons. That's what the Chag Matsah is. That's why they rested according to Shabbat, according to their seasons. And for days and for years, for Yom and Shana. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the Shamayim to give light upon the Arad, and it was so. And Elohim made two great lights. The greater light to rule the day, Yehusaf, and the lesser light to rule the night, the women. Why do you think they came at early dawn? Why do you think they was already up before the sun even rose? And guess what? And Elohim set them in the expanse of the Shamayim to Rekia to give light upon the Arad, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate light or from darkness. That's what he did. And Elohim saw that it was Ta'ud. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth Yom, or Rabbi Yom. That's what today is. This is the fourth day of Chag Matsah. Even though the sun has already risen, and we're now dawning toward the fifth day of Chag Matsah, but at the same time, the revelation of Yahushua Mashiach took place on this day. He revealed himself, and the only way you're going to understand that, you got to understand that the day starts at evening time. And when the day starts at evening time, what happens? That's why they was at the tomb at early dawn before the sun rose, because the day starts at evening, and in the morning it comes back up. Right, so you look at the fourth letter of the Aleph, which is a Daleth, right? The fourth letter of the Aleph, it means Daleth, it means gate, entranceway, doorway, tent door, passageway, exit, entrance, move, and it means portal. All these are a part of this fourth day of Chag Matsah. He was showing a pattern. Because we do it for 7 days. The first day, we have a Kugash convocation, which is Achad. The second day, he put the waters above from the waters below, just like in creation. The third day, the plants start to sprout. That's why you see the buzz on the trees. Right? You see the buzz on the trees right now. And then the fourth day of Chag Matsah, what? Hey, y'all, I want to tell y'all something about me risen, because he rose on the third day. What do you mean he rose on the third day? If you can't understand the third day of creation, when every herb yielding seed, trees bearing seed, making trees according to its kind, if you can't understand the third day, how you going to understand the fourth day of creation? Because we have Chag Matsah for 7 days. And by 7 days, we're on the fourth day. But the third day, he rose. Because just like the plants do on the third day. But the thing about what you don't understand is, how did the plants rise on the third day without a light being there? Because the sun came on the fourth day. Right. Going back to Bereshit chapter 1 and verse 18. To rule over the day and the night, and he separated light from darkness, right? So or from darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good, and there was evening, there was morning, the fourth day. Right? Why? Because it was a gateway, a doorway. Why? It was opened unto them. But at the same time, you start to see the gateway and the doorway on the fourth day. But at the same time, go back to Luke chapter 24. Luke or Yah, we're gonna get out of here. Luke 24, because everybody knows the story. Luke 24 and 1. Luke or Yah 24 and 1, like they say. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they went to the tomb, right? Because that's evening, morning. And they took, and taking spices that they had prepared. Because they had, actually, it was servants, real kind women, Abyb. Because they actually care about somebody when they actually die. And actually want to do something for somebody. So they did something while he was alive, and they did something when he died. And it says, and they found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they had went in, they did not find the body of the master Yahusha. They ain't find it. Why? Why? Because the day starts at evening time. That's why they ain't find him there. Yahusha like, man, it's the third day, man. I ain't waiting always till the sun rise. Okay, the sun went down on the day on the 14th day on the sun went down on the 17th day. So. Well, the sun went down on the 18th day, so yeah, I gotta get up. Because it starts evening and morning. Evening, okay, it's time to get up, right? So why he getting up when the moon, the yard, supposed to be, he says the moon is supposed to rule by night. Why he getting up? Because he's trying to show you that the women's going to be at the tomb before he did. The women's going to be at the tomb. He was trying to show you the light, the greater light to rule by day, and the lesser light to rule by night, because he was a lesser light right now. That's the only reason he did it, because he was a lesser light when he rose. That's why he got up. He was showing you he was a moon, the yard by night. He was showing you he was a lesser light. That's the only reason he did it. And amazingly, the women was there. He was just trying to show you what rules by night. That's why he got up. That's why he did it on the fourth day. But when they went in, they did not find the body of the Master Yahusha. While they were perplexed about this, behold, two men stood by them in dazzling apparel. Man, it was in dazzling. When you say dazzling, that means it was all white. And they were frightened and bowed their faces to the ground, just like Mushah. Just like Yaakov. Just like Abraham when he heard Yahuwah. And just like many others who heard Yahuwah. They bowed their faces to the ground. And guess what? The men said to them, why do you seek the living among the dead? He said, why are you seeking a living being among the dead? Why are you seeking something that's living among the dead? Why? He is not here, but has risen. He did what? He has risen. What do you mean he has risen? He rose yesterday. He already risen. Matter of fact, he rose today, like they say. You know, they say, he has risen. You know how they say. Right? He rose yesterday, right? He rose yesterday, you know, like they say on the third day. But today is the fourth day, and it started at evening time, right? But they came to the tomb on the third day, on the 17th day, on the 16th day at even, what you call the 17th day, and he rose from the grave. That's the 17th day at evening. But then now, this is the 18th day. So why is the fourth day so important? But at the same time, you can actually see when the sun ruled by night. Well, you see the moon ruled by night. But why is he showing you that? Why is he saying that the moon rules by night on the 17th day at evening? Or the 16th day at evening? Because the 16th day at evening is the third day of Chag Matsah. But he was just showing you the moon rules by night. And then now the sun rose, and now he's talking. Right? Now he's talking. Because this is the fourth day. But I'm just talking about the third day right now. And they found the stone rolled away from the tomb on the third day. That's the 16th day at evening. And when they went in, they did not find the body of the Master Yahusha. While they were perplexed about this, behold, two men stood by in dazzling apparel, because you need two witnesses according to Deuteronomy chapter 19. And as they were frightened, they bowed their faces to the ground. The men said to them, why do you seek the living among the dead? Why are you seeking something that's alive among the dead at nighttime? And guess what? And he is not here, but he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee. Why? Because they still ain't remember. Remember, the third day, nobody knew who he was. It was the third day, yesterday. Nobody knew who he was on the third day. He said, remember, so which means he's like, I said a lot of things before I died and rose and ascended. So you got to zakar what I said all the way up until the third day, 16th day at evening of Chag Matsah, a feast of unleavened bread. And then when they got there, they still didn't remember what he said. Just like today, you'll say a whole bunch of things for 3 years, but then everybody will forget what he said when he found it's time for him to do it. And he says, why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee, the son of Adam must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and on the third day rise. Just like Samson, Shamshun was delivered over by Delilah, just like she was Judas, and she delivered him over to the Philistines. Just like Judas delivered him over to the chief priests and the elders. Because a male and female can do it and be Judas, right? He was just trying to show you that male and female can be Judas. Just like the sun and the moon can be both deceivers. The Shamash and the Yard. They can deceive you both. Both of them, both male and female, can deceive you and deliver you up to be crucified. And guess what? While he was still in Galilee, the Son of Man, Adam, must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and women and be crucified and rise on the third day. And they remember his words. So then they remember when the Malachi spoke to them on the 16th day at evening, which is the 17th day. And guess what? And the returning from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to the rest. And then they ran and told to the 11. Why he told them to 11? Because the other one was the betrayer. He was the one who set him up. There's always one. Out of 12, there's going to be one. Because there's always going to be a Satan in your mind out of your 12 cranial nerves. He's going to get on your nerve, that one nerve in your head that you don't understand that's Shaitan inside of you. And he just wants you to betray somebody. That's all he wants you to do. He wants you to be a traitor. Right? And now verse 10 says, now it was Mary Magdalene and Johanna and Mary, the mother of James, and the other women with them, who told these things to the Shalakim. So why do you think he did that? He revealed to them at night because they rule by night. The yard rules by night. Why do you think it was early dawn? He was just trying to show you, okay, we're transitioning over from the moon to the sun. So therefore, he showed us first. So we're just transferring the power back to the Shamash, the sun, the mint, the Shalakim. And he said, but these seem to them as idle tales. See, they ain't even know. This is the third day, right? This is the third day. Nobody knew who he was on the 16th day at evening, on the 16th day at evening, on the 17th day. Nobody knew who he was on the 17th day of Chag Matsah. Nobody knew. Nobody knew who he was on the 17th day of Chag Matsah. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe. See? They didn't believe him. They didn't believe him. So therefore, it was just a fable in their head. They still ain't know. But Qahalath rose and ran to the tomb, stooping and looking in, and he saw the linen cloths by themselves, and he went home marveling at what had happened. Man, he saw the linen cloths sitting there in the tomb. Just like when the Kohanim offered the sacrifices for the people. Then he would, after he would finish, he would wrap his clothes up, and then he would leave it where it was before, and he would put on his own clothes and walk out to all the people. That's what he did. And guess what? Verse 13, that very day, 2 of them were going to the village, right? So still on the 17th day, right? Still on the 17th day. And guess what? About 7 miles from Jerusalem. So how far is 7 miles from Jerusalem? Man, that's a long time, right? So you think about that. 7 miles from Jerusalem. How long do we keep Chag Matsah? But they say it was 7 miles. See, when you with Yahushua, he said, if your brother can tell you to go 1 mile, go 2. And this man say 7 miles from Jerusalem. These people 7 miles from Jerusalem, so you're going to have to go 2, 4, 6. You got to get to 7, boy. You know how long that is? He like, man, I ain't going on 7 miles. But Yahushua ran 7 miles out from Jerusalem when he got out of the tomb. Ain't that something? He ran 7 miles out of Jerusalem to go out of the tomb when he got out of the tomb. So Yahushua was like, man, I'm gonna run. Your brother compel you to go 1 mile, go 2. I'll do it again. Brother compel you to go 1 mile, go 2. I'll do it again. Brother compel you to go 1 mile, go 2. I'll do it again. Then he finally said, you know what? I'll go half a mile. Well, I do 1 mile. I'm out here now. And they were talking with each other about all these things that happened. And while they were talking and discussing together, Yahushua himself drew near and went with them. That's 7 miles from Jerusalem. So he wasn't even, he like, man, I'm 7 miles out here. Think about it. That's a long way, right? And guess what? But their eyes were kept from recognizing him. Nobody knew who he was. So please don't be thinking like, it's the 3rd day. Everybody, you celebrate the 3rd day, but nobody, the real people who actually kept Chag Matsah didn't know who he was. It was all like idle tales. It was like something, a mystery. But then it says, and he said to them, what is this conversation that you are holding with each other as you walk? He's talking with them, 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they stood still looking sad. They were sad. That's what we talked about. That's what you call when you don't have wisdom on the inside. We talked about it in the 2nd Baruch. You get sad. It says, and one of them named Cleophas answered, are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know that these things that happened there in these days? Right? It's like some tragedy that took place. And everybody know about it. He said, so you don't know about it? You should like, man, I wasn't watching TV. Man, I was in the grave 3 days and 3 nights. I don't know nothing. I was in prison. Are you the only visitor? Right? Verse 19. And he said to them, what things? And they said to him concerning Yahushua of Nazareth, a man who was a Nabi, mighty in deed and word before Elohim and all the people, and how our chief priests and rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death. Notice how they know the leaders did it though. They be like, man, you see what the leaders did? Leaders delivered him over to death. They gossiping about you. Right? You killed an innocent man, they talking about you. They talking about what you did. You know how when people do things wrong and they declare themselves to be a leader and then they be like, I ain't do nothing wrong. But the people be talking about you, be like, man, you did. You know what you did, right? They delivered that man, innocent man, over to be killed. And then people like, you see what he did? Please don't be thinking nobody talking about you. And people be thinking that's not true. They do. When you do wrong, people talk about you. Right? They do. And guess what? And how the chief priests and the rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who redeemed Yasharal. He redeemed everybody. He redeemed the 12 tribes. Yasharal. That's what he did. He purchased the strangers and those bought with money. He redeemed Yasharal. Yes, besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since these things happened, right? So that was yesterday. The sun done rose too when he talking. So the women just transferred over to the Shamash, the rule by day. And Yahusha's 7 miles away, and he running around like the sun. I must work to work while it's day, so he's still working. Moreover, some women of our company amazed us, right? And he said, man, before the sun rose, some women amazed us. And he's like, male and female have a part in this. But it says, they were at the tomb early in the morning. They were real early. So if you don't get there early, you're Isha, you ain't no way you're going to understand Yahushua Mashiach. You understand Yahushua Mashiach? I like to sleep in past all the way to such and such, to noontime. Man, you ain't going to understand no Yahushua Mashiach. Ain't nowhere in the world. You don't get up, there's no way in the world you going to understand this man. Right? You got to put yourself in the timeline. You got to be on time. Like he said, you got to be on time. You got a morning sacrifice and an evening sacrifice. You got to be on time. And when they did not find his body, they came back saying that they had even seen vision of Malachim. That's the only way you're going to see visions of Malachim. We talk about this all the time, even when the sun goes down on the regular Shabbat. Right? How you going to be with the Malachim? You got to perform the evening sacrifice and the morning sacrifice, right? Bakar and Aydah, who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said. It was just like they said. Just like Shemuel. Man, it's just like we said. You know, when Shemuel spoke, he said every time he speaks, it happens just like he says. And amazing, the women did the same thing. You know it happened just like he said. Just like Deborah. Remember Deborah? When she said, being that you took too long, a woman gonna get your kabod. Remember she said that? Being that you wasn't up, being that you weren't paying attention, a woman gonna get your kabod. So the women saw him first. He said, who shall go up first? Right? The scepter shall not depart from Yehuda, right? People say, what happens? And they did not see. And he said to them, O foolish ones, right? So you foolish, and slow in heart to believe all that the Nabiim have spoken. You fool, you're slow. And guess what? What is it not necessary that Mashiach should suffer these things? And to enter his kabod, and beginning with Mashah and all the Nabiim, he interpreted to them all the scriptures, the things concerning himself. So he started explaining to people 7 miles from Jerusalem. He said, you know what? I'm finna go through this whole thing. He go the first day of Chag Matsah. He go the second day of Chag Matsah. He go the third day. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go all the way to 2 Chronicles chapter 29. And guess what? He interpreted to them in all the scriptures the things concerning themselves. So they drew near to the village to which they were going, and he acted as if they were he were going further. But they urged him strongly, saying, stay with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is now far spent. Right? So when the day is far spent, that means getting toward evening, a new day is getting ready to begin. And guess what? And when he was at the table with them, he took the bread and baraked it and broke it and gave it to them. Took what bread? Chag Matsah. He took bread. He took unleavened bread and he broke it with them. Because you got to eat bread every single day. But he had them all holed up, teaching them all day, right? And he was like, man, you got me here and I ain't eating no unleavened bread yet. So he's like, you know what? Let me hurry up and get you some bread before the evening time comes in so you can actually understand why all this is happening. Because remember, in order for you to understand it, you have to do certain things, and then you have to understand. He took bread, unleavened bread, and baraked it and gave it to them, and their eyes were open, and they recognized him. He's like, man, we understand. We see how you breaking that bread. And then they understood and they recognized him. Why? That's the only way you're going to recognize him. And he broke bread, Chag Matsah, on the 3rd day, going towards evening to the 4th day, which is today. And their eyes were open, right? Why would their eyes be open? He said their ayin were open. That's what we talked about on Pesach. Awake. You got to see it. Or eyes. Their eyes were open, and they recognized him, and he vanished out of their sight. From their sight, he vanished. Man, he went to another, he vanished out of their sight. He speeded the vibrations of his body and he morphed right out of the room. And guess what? And they said to each other, did not our hearts burn within us while he talked to us on the road and while he opened the scriptures? And they rose that same hour and returned to Jerusalem. And they found the 11 and those who were with him together, saying, the master has risen and has appeared to Simon. Then they told what had happened on the road and how he was known to them in breaking of bread. And that's the only way they knew him, by what? Breaking lakam, breaking bread. And that's the only way you're going to know him. Because man should not live by bread alone, but by every debar that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Right? So, this is the book of Yuchanan, chapter 20 and verse 11. We're going to get out of here. Yuchanan 20:11. John, chapter 20 and verse 11. But Marim stood weeping outside the tomb, and as she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb. And she saw two Malachim in white sitting where the body of Yahusha had lain, and one at the head of the and at the feet. He said, what? One at the head and at the feet. And they said to her, woman, why are you weeping? She said to them, they have taken away my master, and I do not know where they had laid him. Having said this, she turned around and saw Yahusha standing. But she did not know that it was Yahusha. See, this is the third day. This is all the third day. Everybody should know who he was. They ain't know. And Yahusha said to her, woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? What are you seeking? You're supposing him to be the gardener, because he's just like Adam in the garden, Abyb, right? And she said to him, sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. And Yahusha said to her, Marim. She turned and said to him in Aramaic, Rabbani, which means teacher, right? Yahusha said to her, because they put it in parentheses, do not cling to me. She said, do not cling to me. He said, do not touch me. Why? For I have not ascended to my Ab. He said, don't touch me. Do not touch me. Why? Because he Qahalath. Because you're supposed to keep yourself from women. You're supposed to keep yourself from women. That's why. He's still Qahalath. Oh, this is the third day. I thought we were supposed to do it to the 16th day. Yeah, you're supposed to set apart yourself to the 16th day. Then, once you get to the 16th day, then you start to realize Yahusha still with Qahalath after the 16th day. And now it's the 17th day. And he's telling that woman, don't touch me, after the 16th day. And he's like, man, it's the 17th day, and he's saying, don't touch me. So who you think you should follow? You got to make a choice. See, that's the thing. You could do it to the 16th day and go right back to what you were doing. And go back to doing what you would normally do and go sin and do all evil things. Or you can say, you know what? Yahusha said, don't touch me after the 16th day at evening. And this is the 17th day. Right? We're on the 18th day, but it's like, I should still follow him and see what he do. Right? Let's see. Do not cling to me, for I have not ascended to my Father. Right? He ain't go up yet. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father. I'm ascending to my Father and your Father. So who's your Father? So, no, it only depends if you follow Yahusha, though. Right? My Elohim, your Elohim. So, Yahusha said, I worship the same Elohim you got. I got the same Father you got. So what does that make you? What does that make you? If he said your Elohim is the same Elohim as him, and his father the same my father is yours, so what he's saying to you? He's saying that Yahuwah is your father. And what did he say he was? He said, I'm the son of Yahuwah. So what is you? You're a son of Yahuwah. And what does he say to the daughter? You're a daughter of Yahuwah. That's literally what he's telling her. Mary Magdalene went and announced, Mary Magdalene out of 7 demons came out of, he's telling her, who is your father? The one that got 7 demons came out of her. And Mary Magdalene went to announce to the disciples, I have seen the master. And that he said these things to her. On evening of that day, the first day of the week, or you mean on the evening of that day, the doors were locked, right? So going to verse 19. And on the evening of that day, the first day of the week, or you mean the 4th day of Chag Matsah, because it was the 3rd day of Chag Matsah when that happened. On the day, it says on the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors were locked where the disciples were for fear of the Yahudim. And Yahushua came and stood among them and said to them, Shalom be with you. Why? Why did he do that? Because he said, go tell my disciples, I'm going to do what? I'm going to meet with them. But he's saying, I'm going to ascend. But why would he reveal it to them first? Right? So this is the book of Shemuth, Exodus 25, 10 through 22. The book of Exodus, chapter 25, 10 through 22. They shall make an ark of acai wood, 2 cubits and a half shall be its length, and a cubit and a half its breadth, and a cubit and a half its height. You shall overlay it with pure gold, inside and out, with pure gold. That's inside and out, right? That's why we have 8 days of purification and then 8 days of another purification to the 16th day, according to 2 Chronicles, right? And guess what? And ye shall make on it a molding of gold all around it. You shall cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them on its 4 feet, 2 rings on the one side and 2 rings on the other side of it. That's why Yahushua was between 2 thieves. But he's saying he should have 4 rings, right? But at the same time, 4 of them. Why? What today is? This is the 4th day of Chag Matsah. But guess what it says? Ye shall make poles of acai wood and overlay them with gold. Ye shall put the poles and the rings of the size of the ark to carry the ark by them. That's why he compelled a man from the countryside to bear his cross to help him. Why? That's why it was in between 2 thieves. He was right there in between them, and the chief priests and the elders and all the people mocked him. Verse 15, the poles shall remain in the rings of the ark. They shall not be taken from it. He said, man, the poles should remain in the rings of the ark. They should stay right there. They should be taken from it. Why didn't they kept the thieves there after he died? Right? And why do you think they had 2 Malachim at the tomb? They had 2 of them sitting there at the tomb in dazzling apparel. What do you think they were there for? Oh, you mean to carry the ark? Because they were Qahalath. And ye shall put into the ark the testimony that I shall give you. What do you mean a testimony? So what do you think he's doing right now? What do you think he's doing right now? He's putting something in the ark, and he's giving it to you. He's giving it right to you. And you shall make a mercy seat of pure gold, 2 cubits and a half shall be its length, and a cubit and a half its breadth. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold, of hammered work. That's why he had nails in his hands. He said, make 2 cherubim of gold. What did cherubim have? Wings. Why do you think he had 2 Malachim at the tomb? Because both of them got 2 wings. And on the 2 ends of the mercy seat, what do you think his death represented? It represented mercy. Make 1 cherub and one on the one end, and 1 cherub on the other. One the Malachi at the top of the tomb, and 1 at the feet. 1 of the Malachim at the top and at the feet. Of 1 piece with the mercy seat shall you make the cherubim on its 2 ends. The cherubim shall spread out their wings above, overshadowing the mercy seat with their wings. Their faces one to another. Why do you think they were at the top and then at the bottom of the actual tomb? And guess what? Toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubims be. Why do you think he was in between two thieves? They were right in between them. Remember, he said, I go to your father and my father. Your Elohim, my Elohim. You think those two thieves, Yahuwah wasn't their father? He was still their father. They were evil. You think Yahuwah made Shaitan. You think he wasn't his father, but he was a rebellious son. Does that make him still not his father? I created you. And then you had more children after you, Satan. But at the same time, I created you. And you shall put the mercy seat on the top of the ark. Huh? You shall put the mercy seat on top of the ark. And guess what? And in the ark you shall put my testimony that I give to you. So what do you think he's doing right now? He's giving you the testimony and he's giving it to you. I'm giving it right to you. And you're supposed to put it where? In the ark. There I will meet with you. Where he met the woman at? He met her in the garden. He met her right there. You know, before the sun rose, before the morning sacrifice, before the morning sacrifice, the carbon sacrifice. He met with her there. And from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim that are on the ark of the testimony. That's why the two Malachim was sitting right there. I will speak with you. Why are you sad? Why are you weeping? Why are you weeping? And she didn't even know who he was. And guess what? And I will speak with you about all that I will give you in commandment for the people of Yasharal. She said, to go tell my disciples, I'm getting ready to do a sin. To your father, my father, your Elohim, my Elohim. And matter of fact, go tell them I'm going to meet with them in the house. I'm going to go meet with them. Go tell them. But it seemed like idle tales to them. It seemed like idle tales. Right? So that word for ark is Arun. Arun, it means a chest, an ark, a money chest, an ark of the covenant. Right? A money chest. Right? So what do you think this ark represents? This is wealth. This is money. What am I giving you? He said, I'm going to give you this testimony, right? And what this testimony is. And you put it where? In the money chest. Right? You got a money chest. You know how they say a money bin? An ark of the covenant. That's what it is. This is what you call treasures. I'm giving you a treasure. And this is, you put it in your treasury, a box. Right? It says a box. Right? A box, a chest, a coffin, right? That's what it is. And matter of fact, it says what? This same Ruach being you was also in Yahushua Mashiach. You're going to quicken your mortal body. And they put you in a coffin, I assure you, it ain't going to keep you there. Ain't no way they going to keep me down in the grave. Ain't no way. You know what I got in my coffin? But you have no idea. He said, I got a lot of stuff in my coffin. What you got in your coffin? What you got in your body? Right? But here we go. We're going to get out of here. The word for acai is shitta. Shitta, right? Root word, right? Shit. You know how they say, man, that's shitta, right? But not even knowing what the root word is. And you know what they tell you? What they tell you? It don't represent something stinks. The ark is made out of acai wood, and when you put it in the Arun, and the Arun and the shitta makes the ark. The ark is Arun. It is a money chest, and it is made of shitta wood, and it does not stink. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. Because this is the offering that Yahuwah did with a sweet smelling savor. You know, like a sweet smelling savor. He offered to Yahuwah. That was his offering. This is what is in the money chest. It means what? Sticks of wood. Acai tree. Scourging thorn. It means shittim, right? That's what it means. Shitta wood. But they call shitta wood. But it's shit. Right? But that's not actually, what they call, it's profanity. But when people use it with their definitions of what they think the word is, then they think it's like the leaven of the Pharisees when they say they're gonna eat cow's dung. Remember that? But the Qahalath said, he talking about they're gonna eat dung. He said, man, eat human feces. This ain't human feces, right? This ain't cow's dung on the ground. And we ain't mixing this in the bread. You know how you mix it in the bread and give it to people? No, we ain't mixing no cow's dung and no feces in no bread. But at the same time, this is an acai tree. He said, make the Arun of shitta tree. This is the shittim tree, or the acai tree. This is what the acai tree look like. It's just like in Nisha, hair on their head, or somebody who has hair on their head, and you see the branches, and it has hair on its head, right? And that's a shittim, or acacia tree, right? And it says right here, it says, and you shall put the mercy seat on the top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I shall give you. He said, and put the what? Put the testimony. So that word for a mercy seat, right here, that word you shall put in the mercy seat is ChayParach. ChayParach. You shall put a ChayParach, the mercy seat, a place of atonement. But it means a lid. A lid to cover the ark, the sacred ark. A ChayParach. You put a ChayParach on the lid. Why do you think they buried Yahusha in the tomb? Why do you think they rolled a stone over the tomb before they rested on the 15th day of Chag Matsah? They were putting the lid on the Ark of the Covenant. They were putting a lid on the Ark of the Covenant, or the Arun shittim. Right? They put it on the ark, the Arun. Right. So that word for testimony, he said, and you shall put the mercy seat, or the lid, on the top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I give you. What do you mean testimony? That word for testimony is Aydah. You shall put the Aydah that I give to you. He said, I'm giving it to you. Because you know what it says? For the wages of sin is death. But the free gift of Yahuwah is eternal life. Through Yahushua Mashiach, our master, is free. I'm giving you the testimony, and I'm giving it to you. And guess what? That word for, and guess what it start with? Aydah. It start with an ayin. Remember, their eyes, remember we read in Luke, they couldn't see. Their eyes had scales on them. They were holding, they couldn't see it. And then he was known by breaking lakam, bread. And he what? Broke it and gave it to them. He gave it to them. And he said, man, didn't our hearts burn within us while he spoke to us and he broke bread with us? Oh, you mean their ayin was still kind of, man. But even after he went to Mashah, he was explaining them the whole day. Because on the third day, nobody knew who this man was. But on the fourth day, they were like, let there be lights in the Shamayim in the earth. Let them be for signs, seasons, days, months, and years. Let it be for Aos, because that's what the sign was And then let it be for Mu'ed, because he did it on Chag Matsah on the third day. And then let it be for times, because he had to be on time, because Shanae, because he had to be up before the women got there, before the sun rose, right? He had to be there on the third day. And then let it be for on the third day, because that's what Yom represent. But the actuality, we start to see all these transpiring all at the same time. But then we look at the third day as something that transpired, right? But then we on the fourth day. But what does this fourth day got to do with anything? We just read you got to have 4 rings on the ark, right? And this is a testimony, right? This is Shemuth, Exodus chapter 37, 1 through 9. Shemuth, Exodus 37, 1 through 9. And Bezalel made the ark of acai wood. Who? Bezalel made the ark of acai wood. 2 cubits and a half was its length, and a cubit and a half its breadth, and a cubit and a half its height. And he overlaid it with pure gold inside and out, and made a molding of gold around it. Well, I think Yeshayahu chapter 48:10, he said, I refined you, I've chosen you to the furnace of affliction. I refined you. I've chosen you to the furnace of affliction. What do you think all that represent? It was adversity when Yahushua went through. But at the same time, he said he overlaid it with pure gold inside and out, and made a molding of gold around it. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold for its 4 feet. Why? Because that's why we're 2 malachim. Each malachim got 2 feet. Each malachim got 2 wings. Right? 2 rings on its side, one side, and 2 rings on the other. And he made the poles of acai wood and overlaid them with gold, and put the poles into the rings on the side of the ark to carry the ark. And he made a mercy seat of pure gold, 2 cubits and a half its length, and a cubit and a half its breadth. And he made the cherubim of gold, and he made them of hammered work on the 2 ends of the mercy seat, and 1 cherub on one end and 1 cherub on the other end of one piece with the mercy seat. He made the cherubim on its 2 ends. The cherubim spread out their wings above, overshadowing the mercy seat with their wings, and with their faces one to another. Toward the mercy seat were the faces of the cherubim. Listen. It's the same thing they wrote, but at the same time, that word for Bezalel, that word for his name is Batzalel. Right? That's what his name means. But it means in the shadow. In the shadow. That's what his name means. Or in the protection of Elohim. Means shadow. Protection. That's who built the ark. That's who built it. Right? So this is the book of Psalms. This is the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms, chapter 17, and verse 1. The book of Psalms, Tahalim, 17 and 1. Hear a just case, O Yahuwah, to my cry. Give ear to my prayer from my lips, free of deceit. Now you see why it says Yahushua will have no sin, neither was deceit found in his mouth. Come from your presence, let my vindication come, and let your eyes behold the right. You have tried my heart. You have visited me by night. And when it was dawning toward evening, where did Yahushua appear? On the 4th day of Chag Matsah. He appeared to them at night in the house. And guess what? You have tested me and you will find nothing. Why do you think he does that? Why do you think he does that? Why do you think he did that to his disciples? I have proposed that my mouth will not transgress. He said, I propose that my mouth will not transgress. with regard to the works of man, Adam, which by the words of your lips I have avoided the ways of violence, of the violent. He said, I avoided. Now you see why I tell you to avoid such people in 1 Timothy. My steps have held fast to your paths. My feet have not slipped. That's why he did it for the first 16 days. You're supposed to have purified yourself and set apart yourself against the third day. But nobody still didn't know who he was until the fourth day at evening, or the third day at evening, going toward the fourth day, which is today. That's when they realized who he was. The understanding, the Bina Hamada'ah. Call upon you, I call upon you, and you will answer me, O Elohim. Incline your ear to me, hear my words. He said, hear. Why? Wondrously show your steadfast love, O Savior. Oh, what? O Savior of those who seek refuge from their adversaries at your right hand. Wasn't they in the house because of the reason of the Yahudim, because they were seeking to kill him? Wasn't they all in the house when the woman came? By themselves, away from everybody, avoiding everybody. Why? Because they were violent people, man. They were killing people. They killed Yahushua Mashiach. So they were by themselves in the house. And he says, from their adversaries at your right hand, he said, Yod, keep me as the apple of thine eye, the pupil of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. Oh, you mean of the mercy seat? You mean of the Arun, or the Kippur, the actual Ark of the Covenant and the testimony, of the cherubs, of the wings of the cherubs, overshadowing the mercy seat. Hide me under the shadow of your wings from the wicked who do me violence. Why do you think they were hiding from all the Yahudim? And guess what? My deadly enemies who surround me. What do? They close their hearts to pity. With their mouths they speak arrogantly. Right? You know how we talk about in Enoch, they say they speak great. So this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 31, 23 through 29. And Yahuwah commissioned Yahushua the son of Nun and said, be strong and courageous. You got to be strong. For you shall bring the people of Yasharal into the land that I swore to give them. Because Yahuwah made a promise to Abraham that he's going to bring them into the land. That he's going to give it to him, a land that's flowing with milk and honey. A land that's flowing with being fruitful and multiply. He says that I will be with you. Right? So what do you mean by that? He said, I'm going to be with you. Right? No, he said, I'm going to be with you. Right? So this is the book of Yochanan, chapter 14. The book of John, Yochanan, chapter 14, and verse 1. The book of Yochanan, John, chapter 14, and verse 1. Right? And it says, let not your hearts be troubled. Right? He said, don't let your lab be troubled. Believe in Elohim, believe also in me. Right? So just like you believed in Mashah, he said, believe in Yahushua, the son of Nun, or Joshua, the son of Nun. In my father's house are many rooms. Right? He said, in my father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would not have told you that I go to prepare a place for you. Right? So he was going to prepare a place for you. Just like he said, I swore to give to them and I will be with you. He said, I go to prepare a place for you. He's literally swearing an oath to you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself. He said, if I go to do that, I'm not lying. Because Yahushua said I ain't lying. Because Yahuwah said I'm not lying when I promise it to you. Therefore, and if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and I will take you to myself. So he said, I'll take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also. Right? So Yahuwah said his eyes are always upon it. He said, where I am, there you will be also. And he says, and you know the way that I am going. Right? He said, you know the way that I'm going. Because everybody knew the way they were going when they came out of Mizraim. They knew they was going to a land that was promised, and they knew that it was promised to them. And they had no doubts. They already knew where they were going. But and even Yahushua told his disciples, he said, You know the way that I'm going. Verse 5 says, Thomas said to him, Master, we do not know where you are going, right? So just like we talked about on the third day, nobody knew who he was. Nobody even understood what he was saying. Right? You can see how Thomas was already in that state of mind. He already had doubts in his mind. Nobody knew who he was on the third day. And guess what it says? And how can we know the way? Yahushua said to him, I am the way. He said, I am the way, the Amath and the Kai, the life. No one can come to the Father except through me, right? Nobody can get into this Berith, this covenant, except through him. That's why he sacrificed himself and he offered his blood on Pesach. And guess what? He says, guess what he says? No one can come to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also, because nobody knew who he was. He said, if you known me, you would have known my Father also. You know what else he said? For now on, you do not know him and have seen him. Philip said to him, Master, show us the Father, and it is enough for us, right? There was another person who didn't know who he was. They didn't understand who he was either. Just like I said, on the third day, nobody knew who he was. And guess what he said? Yahushua said to him, have I been with you so long, and you still do not know me, Philip? He said, you still don't understand it? It's right, granted, this is the fourth day of Chag Matsah. Right, this happened you think about the third day, nobody knew who he was, and this is even before the third day. And guess what he says? How can you know? He says, whosoever has seen me has seen the Father. Right, he said, whosoever has seen him, he said, you seen the Father also. Why? Because that's what Yahuwah was talking to. Because he was speaking in him, right? And using his body to reconcile the world to himself. Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father in me? Say, do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father's in me? Do you not believe that the Abyb, the strength of the house? Do you not believe the Abyb, the strength of the house is in me? Guess what he said? I am my Father. He says, do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? He says, the words that I say unto you, the words that I say to you, I do not speak of my own authority. Right? The same thing with Mashah. We just read in Devarim chapter 31. He said, it's not on his own authority that he's doing it. You know what he says? But the Father who dwells in me does his work. Why? Because the bar is on the inside. Because Yahuwah was in the Son. And guess what? Believe me that the Father, that the Abyb, the strength of the house, and the Abyb is in me. Or else believe on the account of the works themselves. He said, believe on the works, the things that he's doing themselves. He said, truly, truly, I say to you, whosoever believes in me will do the works that I do. Right? So you will do the same thing. What do you mean the same thing? That's like Mashah was leading the children in Yasharal. Guess what? He said, commission Yahushua, the son of Nun. He said, be strong. He said, you're going to do the same thing. He said, and guess what he said? Whosoever believes in me will also do the works that I do. And greater works than these will he do. Because I am going to the Father. He said, because I'm leaving. Because nobody knew who he was. Whatsoever you ask in my name, this I will do. That the Abyb may be kabod in the Son. And if you ask me anything in my name, he said, I will do it. Right, so going back to Devarim chapter 31 and verse 23. 31 and 23. And it says, and Yahuwah commissioned, Devarim 31 and 23, and Yahuwah commissioned Yahushua the son of Nun, and said, be strong and courageous, for you shall bring the people of Yasharal into the land that I swore to give them, and I will be with you. And when Mashah had finished writing the words of the Torah in a book to the very end, right? So he wrote it in a book to the very end, right? He ain't skipped. Mashah commanded the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant, right? The Arun of Kaparoth of the Yahuwah, right? The Ark of the Covenant, Ark of the Berith of Yahuwah, take this book of the Torah and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant, right? That's what he said in verse 26. Take this book of the covenant and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah your Elohim, that it may be a witness against you. Against who? Because the Levites, Louis, could not carry the ark if they weren't purified, let alone touch it if they weren't consecrated, just like we did for the first 16 days of Chag Matsah. From the first day to the 16th day, you had to be consecrated a certain way. And then when Yahushua rose, you had to make a choice, either to keep following him or go back to sin, or go back to what you were doing before. But Mashah, verse 25, Mashah commanded the Levites who carried the ark of the Berith of the Yahuwah, take this book of the Torah and put it by the side of the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah your Elohim, that it may be there for a witness against you. Against who? Against the priests, the Kohanim. It's a witness against the Kohanim, the priests. Why do you think Koph said, you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, who show forth the praise of him who called you out of darkness into this marvelous light? Because this book of the Torah is a witness against you in the ark, in the Arun. But guess what he said? For I know how rebellious, he said, I know how rebellious and stubborn you are. He said, I know how rebellious and stubborn you are. Behold, even today, while I am alive with you. He said, I know how rebellious and stubborn you are. Stubborn, who's stubborn? The Kohanim. He said, I know how rebellious and stubborn you are. Right, so going to the book of Numbers, Numbers, Midbar, chapter 7. The book of Numbers, chapter 7. The book of Midbar, chapter 7. Numbers, chapter 7. In verse 1, right, just a little adversity. Numbers, chapter 7, and verse 1. This is on the day when Mashah had finished setting up the tabernacle and anointed and consecrated it with all its furnishings, and had anointed and consecrated the altar with all its utensils, right? He talked about the furnishings and all its utensils, because all these things were made according to the Torah, right? And it says, and the furnishings, and he had anointed and consecrated the altar with all its utensils. The chief of Yasharal, the heads of their families, the houses, who were the chiefs of the tribes, who were over those who listed, approached. Right? So he said, I know how rebellious and stubborn you are, because he anointed all and consecrated all the utensils. But you know, people don't have no respect for the Debar, even though all these things take place, right? But skipping over the verse 85 or 88, skipping over to verse Numbers chapter 7, Midbar chapter 7, and verse 88, and it says, going to 87, going to 88. And all the cattle for the sacrifice of peace offerings, 24 bulls, the rams 60, and male goats, skipping over to verse 89. And when Mashah went into the tent of the meeting to speak with Yahuwah, he heard the voice speaking to him above the mercy seat that was on the ark of the testimony, or the ark of ChayParach, right? From between the cherubim, it spoke to him. Why? Because he wasn't doing this on his own authority, just like we read in Yuchanan chapter 14. He was doing this because Yahuwah commissioned him to do it. And he said, I already know how rebellious you are. He said, I already know this. And the reason why he said that is because he already knows the children of Yasharal and how rebellious they are, because he got experience with them. Right? And you think about the women coming to the tomb. When they came to the tomb, just like he spoke to Mashah, he said, I'm not doing this on my own authority. When Yahushua came, he commissioned the women. It was when they came to the tomb, when the Malachi at the front and at the head and the actual stone rolled away and the ark opened, he spoke to them where the ark was. And he commissioned them to meet his disciples where? He commissioned them to meet his disciples where? It was like the women at the tomb, the same way. They weren't doing it on authority. Right, going to Dabarim chapter 26, 31, 26. Take this book of the Torah and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant, your Elohim, that it may be there for a witness against you. For I know how rebellious and stubborn you are. Behold, even today, while I am yet alive with you, you have been rebellious against Yahuwah. Right, he already knew that. how much more after my death? He's like, how much more after my death, right? He said, assemble to me the elders of the tribes of your officers, right? That I may speak these words in their ears and call Shamayim and earth, right, to witness against them. So what do you think he getting that from? Going to Matthew chapter 27 or Matthew chapter 28. Matthew chapter 28 and verse 1. Matthew chapter 28 in verse 1. Matthew chapter 28 in verse 1. And it says, now after the Shabbat, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Marim, Magdalene, and the other Mary went to see the tomb, right? And guess what? And behold, there was a great earthquake. That's what it takes. It says, for a malach of Yahuwah descended from Shamayim and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. That's what it takes to roll back, to take off the lid of the ark, the Arun. That's why he took it off the stone. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes white as snow, like snow white. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. But the malach said to the woman, do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Yahusha, who was crucified. He is not here. He is risen. Look at that. This happened on the third day, right? He said the third day. Why? It happened on the 16th day at evening time. And this is the 17th day before the sunrise, because that's what it said after the Shabbat. At the dawn of the 17th day. And guess what? But the malach of Chag Matsah. But the malach said to the woman, do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Yahusha, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen. As he said, come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. Right? That's what he just told. That's what he told Mashah. He told him to assemble the elders and the tribes of the officers, that I may speak these words in their ears and call Shamayim and earth to witness against them. That's why he told the woman to go tell them. Because he's going to call Shamayim and earth to witness against them. Why? Because he already knew how stubborn and rebellious they were going to be. And get what it says. And he said, come and see where he lay. Then go quickly and tell the disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he is going before you in Galilee. There you will see him. See, I have told you. He said, you're going to see me there. And you do, right? You're going to see it. I'm going to give you the testimony. So they departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, and ran to tell his disciples. And behold, Yahusha met them and said, greetings. He said, shalom. That's what he said. That's what Mashah said he was going to do. He said, assemble the elders of the tribes and your officers, and I'm going to meet with you. And they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped. Then Yahusha said, do not be afraid. Go tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me. He said they're going to see me. All right, going back to Deuteronomy chapter 31. Devarim chapter 31 and verse 28. It says, assemble to me the elders of Yasharal, elders of the tribes, and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call Shamayim and earth to witness against them. For I know after my death you will surely act corruptly and turn aside from the way that I commanded you. That's why in the Ascension Yeshayahu it said they're going to turn away from the teachings of the Shelakim. He already knew that. That's why Yahusha would tell him, I'm going to meet with you. That's what it says. And guess what it says? And in the days to come, evil will befall you, because you will do what is evil in the sight of Yahuwah, right? Because Yahuwah already knew, Mashah already knew what the Lui and the Levites and all those people were going to do, provoking him to anger through the works of your yad, the works of your hands. These are all the things that took place, and by the works of their hands, many people were deceived. But yet we see all these things taking place during this time in the wilderness, but you can see the correlation of Yahushua Mashiach. He said, why is this all important? Why? Because it's all a part of it. It's all important. It's all a part of it. Right, so this book of Joshua, Yahushua chapter 3, Joshua chapter 3, 1 through 16. Joshua chapter 3, 1 through 16. Then Yahushua rose early in the morning. When did Yahushua get up? When did he get up? On the third day. Early in the morning, before the sun dawned. And guess what? Then Yahushua rose early in the morning and they set out from Shittim. Oh, you mean, what do you mean Shittim? That's where they wood at, to make the Ark of the Covenant. It says, and they came to Yarden, and he and all the people of Yashral and lodged there before they passed over. Who was supposed to lead them over to the other side of the river? Yahushua. He's supposed to lead them over. And at the end of 3 days, when Yahushua rose, at the end of 3 days, the officers went through the camp and commanded the people. You mean the women went to the camp and commanded the people to do what? As soon as you see the Ark of the Covenant, what did he say you're going to go? He told the woman, he said, go to Galilee. There that my disciples will see me. As soon as you see the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah, your Elohim, being carried by the Levites, by the Levitical priests. Why? Because they had to purify themselves the first 16 days. And then, on the third day, they had to do it against the third day because he was going to rise. And then by doing it on the third day, when he's going to rise, then they had to say, okay, Yahushua told us to meet him in Galilee on the fourth day. And what did he say? Yet there be at a distance, and here's what he said, and then you shall set out from your place and follow it. Follow who? Follow the Ark of the Covenant. Follow the Arun. And guess what? And you shall follow it. What do you think when they came to the men in Luke 24, he said their eyes were holding, their ayin, their Aydah. And they couldn't see him. But he broke bread with them. And then guess what? He told the woman, I'm going to meet you in Galilee. And he said, make sure y'all follow what I just said, the instructions that I said. That's why I said you have to make a choice if you want to follow Yahushua, because Yahushua was still purifying himself. Matter of fact, he got up from the grave, woman, don't touch me. He still was keeping himself from women. Matter of fact, he told him to go meet you in Galilee, right? Didn't he do that? And then he said, you know what? Make sure you follow it. And guess what? If you follow it, guess what's going to happen? You know, if you get up early in the morning like Isha, like the women do, if you follow the pattern, you'll see him. Yet there shall be a distance between you and it, about 2,000 cubits in length. He's like, man, how far we gotta go? Galilee, that's 7 miles away. Well, our brother commanded us to go 1 mile, go 2, 1 mile, go 2. He said, do it about 3 times, and then another mile. That's 7 miles. Boy, he said, go 7 miles. He like, hold up. Do not come near it. What he said? Do not come near it in order that you may know the way you should go. Right? That's why he told the woman, don't touch me. Then he told her, he said, don't touch me. And then she said, this is the way you should go. Go tell my disciples, tell them I'm risen, and tell them I'm going to meet them in Galilee. Matter of fact, when they came to him, it was like idle tales. They didn't believe it. And guess what? For you have not passed this way before. He said, you ain't never heard this before. That's why Yahushua said he had to explain to them again. And guess what? Then Yahushua said to the people, Qahalath yourselves. Or you mean purify yourself. Make yourself Qahalath. That's what we did for the first 16 days. Now you see why you got to do it. People say, why you got to do it for the first 16 days? Qahalath yourselves for tomorrow. What do you mean tomorrow? Because he just told them he rose on the third day at evening time. Then the sun rose, and then he met some people. He saw the woman, told him to meet him in Galilee. And then it was dawning toward evening. And guess what? He said, I'm going to meet you there in Galilee. But for some reason, Yahushua just vanishing out of people's sight. He morphed out of the room. And then when the sun went down, when it was time to meet with him, he morphed right back in the room and said shalom. But it says, Qahalath yourselves for tomorrow. So Yahushua, I'll give you more instructions. Matter of fact, third day, y'all know it's the third day. I rose from the grave. I met the woman. I met the men on the road. But when it's evening time on the fourth day, which is today, well, the evening time already passed, but on the fourth day, which is today, you know what? I'm going to meet with you, and I'm going to tell you about some stuff the day after the third day, at night. And guess what? Yahuwah will do wonders among you. That's why he morphed in the room. That's why he came in the room and said shalom. And Yahusha said to the Kohanim, the priests, or you mean his disciples, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on before the people. He said, what? The ones who kudash themselves, purified themselves. Take up the ark of the covenant and pass on before the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. What do you mean, take it up? Carry it. He said, carry it. He said, take up the ark of the covenant, right? So that word for Yahusha is Yahusha, right? That's what Yahushua. They call it Yahushua, but it doesn't have an ooh, but it says Yahusha, but you can call it Yahusha, right? That's what people call it. But it's spelled with a yod, a ha, and a woo, and a shin, and an ayin, which equals to what? 70, which is 391 equals to 13. Just like a 364-day cycle, right? You got to be on time. You got to be on time, which equals to what? 13. You got to be on time, right? You got to be up. You got to be up at the right time. You have to. And then it equals a 4, what? That's the 4 rings on the what? The Ark of the Covenant. And amazingly, who was the Ark of the Covenant? Yahushua Mashiach. He was the Ark. Right? He's the Ark, right? So that word for Shittim, of course, it means what? That word for Shittim in Yahusha, Joshua chapter 3, 1 through 16, it says, and then Yahusha rose early in the morning, that's when Yahusha rose, and set out for Shittim. Set out from Shittim. The Asayas, that's what it's called. And guess what it also means? A place west of Jerusalem. Yahusha got up. He's like, man, I gotta go 7 miles, right? He said, what? He had to go 7 miles. It means acai trees. Why do you think they was showing you the Ark of the Testimony when he rose from the grave? On the third day. Because it was made out of the same wood of the Arun, of the Ark. It was made out of the same wood of the Ark, right? This is Luke 24, Luke or Yah 24. We almost there. Luke or Yah 24 and 23. Luke or Yah 24. Luke 24, Luke or Yah 24 and 36. Luke 24 and 36. And as they were talking about these things, Yahushua himself stood among them and said, Shalom be to you. But they were startled and frightened and thought they had saw a spirit, a ruach, a ghost, like something spirit. And he said, that's why he said he's gonna do wonders among them. That's why he told them to go gather all the people, and I'm gonna meet with them. I'm gonna do wonders among them. And make sure you bring the ark too. That's why the ark there right now, talking to them. Shalom to you. And guess what? And he said to them, why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? He said, why are you doubting? See my hands and my feet. He said, I'm going to do wonders among you. Why do you think he's doing see my hands and my feet? Because you got to make what? You got to make rings at the top of the ark and at the bottom of the ark. Remember, he got 2 hands, he got 2 feet. That's 4 in total. He said make 4 rings at the ark, right? 4 rings with its poles on its side. He said, see my hands and my feet. That it is myself. He said, look at me. He said, look at the Arun. Touch me and see. Who can the only one get touch that ark? The priests, the Levites, Louis, the Kohanim. They're the only ones that can touch it. Matter of fact, the only way you can touch it, you got to make sure you have purified yourself and kept yourself from women. And you had to do a lot of other purifications and get the oil out of your tent, your ahal. For a Ruach does not have flesh and bones as you see I have. And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they still disbelieved for joy and were marveling, he said to them, have you anything to eat? Right here is Yahusha, who purified himself for the first 16 days up in the first month, all the way and kept himself from women, and did all these things to purify himself. And you say, what did he want? And guess what they said? Guess what they wrote here? Right? Guess what they wrote here? They gave him a piece of broiled fish and took it and ate before him. So here's Yahusha, who purified himself first 16 days, kept himself from women during Chag Matsah, and they gave him a piece of boiled fish. Are you sure? Right, this is the book of 2 Samuel. This is the book of 2 Samuel. This is the book of 2 Samuel. This are all a part of this whole thing. Because everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason, right? Everything happens for a reason. Right, so this is the book of 2 Samuel chapter 15, 21. 2 Samuel chapter 21. 2 Samuel, 1 Samuel chapter 21 and verse 4. 1 Samuel chapter 21 verse 4. Alu Shamuel 21 and 4. And the priest answered Dawid, I have no common bread on hand. Skipping up to verse Alu Shamuel 21 and 1. Just go to 21 and 1. 1 Samuel 21 and 1. Then Dawid came to Nob and to Abimelech the priest. And Abimelech came to meet Dawid trembling and said to him, why are you alone? And no one is with you. Right? That's Yahushua Mashiach. He was alone. Like nobody was with him. And guess what? And that's what he said. And Dawid said to Abimelech, the priest, the king has charged me with a matter and said to me, let no one know anything of the matter about which I send you and which I have charged you. Why do you think the demons were trying to get him to expose him to everybody? I have made an appointment with the young men for such and such a place. Why do you think he made an appointment for them in Galilee? He made an appointment with them for Galilee. He said, meet me there. I'm going to meet with you there. I'm going to do wonders among you. And guess what? Now, then, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread and whatever is here. And the priest answered Dawid, I have no common bread on hand. But there is Qahalath bread. The young men have kept themselves, if the young men have kept themselves from women, why do you think he told the woman, don't cling to me, when he got out from the grave? And then he had Qahalath bread. And who the only people that could touch the ark? He told the woman, don't touch me. But he said to the disciples, handle me and see and touch me. Because they're the only one, the priests, the Kohanim, the Levites were the only ones that could touch the ark. And Dawid answered the priest, truly women have been kept from us. Why do you think Yahushua told that woman not to touch me? Or Niga. He said, don't touch me. Naga. Why do you think he did that? Let me guess. He woke up from the grave, purified himself, kept himself from women, met with his disciples with an appointment with young men, and then he know what he said? I want a piece of fish. Let's see. Truly women have been kept from us. Always, when I go on an expedition, the vessels of the young men are Qahalath, even when it is an ordinary journey. He's like, man, I already taught this to them already. And guess what? How much more today will their vessels be Qahalath? He said, how much more now, being that I don't appear to them? And he said, so the Kohanim gave him the Qahalath bread, for there was no bread there but the bread of presence. Because when he was dawning toward evening, what did he do? He broke bread to them. He said, the only thing that's there is the bread of presence, which is removed from before Yahuwah to be replaced by hot bread. Why do you think he had meat with them at evening time? Because the bread was cold. Because think about it, he was already there from the whole day, teaching, got up on the third day, and he said in the evening time, you know what? I'm going to meet with you there. I'm going to do wonders. Matter of fact, he said, I'm the bread which came down from Shabath. He goes some nice hot bread. Didn't our heart burn with us while he spoke this, by the way? Didn't it burn within us while he spoke to us, by the way? Which is removed before Yahuwah to be replaced by hot bread on the day it was taken away. It is taken away. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul who was there said that day detained before Yahuwah, his name was Doeg, an Edomite, the Saul's herdsman, right? So we're skipping over. Right, so this is the book of Joshua, chapter 3, Yahushua chapter 3, 7 through 13. And Yahuwah said to Yahushua, today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Yasharal, that they may know that as I was with Mashah, so I will be with you. Right? And as for you, command the Kohanim to bear the ark of the covenant. When you come to the brink of the water of Yarden, you shall stand still in Yarden. And Yahushua said to the people of Yasharal, come here and listen to the words of Yahuwah, your Elohim. And Yahushua said, Here is how you shall know that the living Elohim is among you, that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, gods, Hittites, gods, Hivites, gods, Perizzites, gods, the Gittites, gods, the Amorites, gods, and the Jebusites, gods. Why? How he gonna do that? How he gonna drive all these things, these other understandings, these other teachings, these other leavens out of your body? How he gonna drive it out? Behold, the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah of all the earth, the ark, the Arun of the covenant of Yahuwah is passing over before you into the Yarden. He's passing over you. You. Because the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to do something to you when you ain't right, when your heart and your mind and you're not purified. What do you mean the Ark of the Covenant? It's passing on before you from each tribe. Why? Because when they go into these other people's land, I assure you. But with you, it's going to be a different reaction than it is when it's with them. But it says, and when the soles of your feet, when the soles of the feet of the priests bearing the ark of Yahuwah, of the master of the earth, shall rest in the waters of Yarden. What do you mean, soles of your feet? The waters of the Yarden shall be cut off from flowing, and the waters coming down from above shall stand in one heap. That means it's going up in the air. Up in the air. He says it's going to stand on one heap. Right, going back to Luke chapter 24 and verse 39. Luke 24 and 39. Luke 24:39. Luke 24:39. See my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Touch me and see. For a ruach does not have flesh and bones as you see, I have. And when he had said this, he showed him his hands and his feet. And what do you mean show him his hands and his feet? Why would his hands and his feet? Why would he show him his hands? Because he was barefoot. He had no shoes on. He had no shoes on. He said, look at my hand. You ever seen your hands and your feet? Look at your body and your hands like that little color, right? You look at the bottom. He said he had no shoes on. And guess what he said? And they, while they still disbelieved for joy and were marveling, he said to them, have you anything to eat? And they gave him a piece of broiled, what? Are you sure? They gave him a piece of unleavened bread, of the Qahalath bread of his presence. And he took, because that's what it is, and he took it and he ate before them. Because that was the bread that the priest brought. And he was scared to death when Dawid rose from the grave. Matter of fact, they the same way. They fearful too. They don't understand. They thought it was a spirit that came in the room. They were just like the priest. That Dawid, when Dawid came there, he like, what you doing here alone? What's going on? You just morphed in the room. What's going on? You just morphed in the room. They scared. And he's like, man, you know what? Let's give him some fish. No, they gave him the bread of presence. It's not no ordinary bread up in here because we all Kohanim. We all priests. We like Malakim. Why would we be eating some? We give you here some lakam bread. It's evening time. It's hot bread right now. You want it? You want this fresh hot bread? Because you know we got to give it to Yahuwah at night. You know, at evening time, the evening sacrifice, we got to make sure we give it to him at night, though. He like hot bread. They gave him a piece of the bread of presence, and he took it and ate before them. And he said to them, these are my words. Why would he? See, that's the thing. These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you. So where in the Torah do you see that at? You ain't got no, where in the Torah you see that? Yahushua was fulfilling everything in the Torah. It's not in there, right? That's how you know it's a lie, right? Straight up lie of Satan, right? Put it right there in your face, right? And guess what? These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you. That everything written about me in the Torah, law of Moses, and the Nabi'im, and in the Psalms must be fulfilled, huh? You a liar, right, Satan, right? You a straight up liar. Then he opened their minds, because you got to have a good mind, open the mind, which means he had to open all 12 cranial nerves. Because there are 12 cranial nerves in your mind, which means each tribe had a different task, and each mind, each nerve has a different operation. And he has to open your mind to do what? To understand the scriptures. And said to them, thus it is written that Mashiach should suffer and on the third day rise from the dead. And that repentance and forgiveness of sins should be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning from Jerusalem to the 12 tribes first. To the 12 tribes first. You are my witnesses of these things. Didn't we just read that with Deuteronomy when he said he's going to meet with them? He said, I know how your rebellious heart you are. This is going to be a witness against you. Didn't he say that to them? He said, this is going to be a witness against you. I know y'all, after I die, I already know. After I leave here, I already know what you're going to do. And that's exactly what Sensitive Yeshayahu already know what they were going to do. And guess what? He says, and you are my witnesses. And behold, I am sending the promise of my Father upon you. Because they're going to bear the ark. Who's supposed to bear the ark across the Yarden? The Kohanim. The Kohanim, the priests. But stay in the city until you are clothed with power from on high. What do you mean clothed? And guess what it says? Yeah. It said, till you be clothed with power on high, right? Like going back to Yahusha, Joshua chapter 3, verse 13. And when the soles of the feet of the priests bearing the ark of Yahuwah, the master of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of Yarden, the waters of Yarden shall be cut off from flowing, and the waters coming down from above shall stand in one heap. He said it's going to be one heap, right? So that word for sole of his feet, he says the soles, that word for soles, when the soles of the feet of the priest bearing the ark of Yahuwah, that word for soles is kaf. Kaf. It means palm hand, sole. So look at the palm of your hand. Right? See the palm of your hand? And then you look at the sole of your feet, right? The bottom of your feet is all the same color. Because they were barefoot. They were barefoot. They were barefoot. And guess what? Hollow object, vessel, right? It also means hand-shaped branches, right? We're not talking about, it was barefoot. Palm. It was a barefoot people. Barefoot priests. They were barefoot priests, right? So this is the book of, we're almost there. We're almost there. We ain't talking about that. We're almost there. We're almost there, right? So this is the book of, This is the book of Joshua. Let's go here. Book of Joshua chapter 3, 14 through 17. So when the people set out from their tents to pass over Yarden with the priests, the Kohanim, bearing the Ark of the Covenant before the people, and as soon as those bearing the Ark had come as far as the Yarden, and the feet of the priests bearing the Ark were dipped in the brink of the water, it says now the Yarden overflows all its banks throughout the time of harvest, right? Of course, they just put it in parentheses. Verse 16, the waters coming down from above stood, and the rose up in a heap very far away, at Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan. Right, the water stood on a heap, very far away. How far was Jerusalem from Jerusalem? When he left, he got 7 miles away. Man, it was real far away too. At Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan. Man, he see how far he had to get away from the city? 7 miles from the city, right? And those flowing down toward the sea of Arabah. Arabah means four. The salt sea, which is completely cut off. Everything cut off. The people passed over opposite Jericho. Now the priests bearing the Ark of the Covenant stood firmly on dry ground. He said they stood firmly on dry ground in the midst of the Yarden, and all Yasharal passing over on dry ground until all nations finished passing over Yarden. Then he told them to do? He told them to go teach all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. And all Yasharal was passing over on dry ground, right? That's Jerusalem. Until all nations finished passing over, right? And then he said, go to all Jerusalem and all nations. Didn't he say that? And they stood firmly on dry ground, right? So that word for the bearing, now the priest bearing the Ark of the Covenant stood firmly. That word for bearing is Nasa. Nasa. He said, which ark you want? He said, which ark you want? Are you gonna go to another planet? Which one you want? Because everybody trying to take you and get you away from this ark. They don't want you to bear it. They don't want you to carry this. They want you to Nasa the Arun. They don't want you to Nasa the Arun and lift it off the ground. Because if you lift it off the ground, we're talking about you. Right? Once you lift this ark up and you start carrying this Nasa, you start Nasa this Arun inside of you, guess what? It means to lift, to bear up, to cape, to be lifted up. That's what you're going to be, right? To lift oneself, to rise up. That's what's going to happen. You're going to rise up. To carry, to bear continuously. You're going to bear it continually. To lift oneself up, to exalt oneself, to cause to bear. Humble yourself under the mighty yard of Yahuwah, and he'll exalt you in due time. He'll get you up. To cause to bring it. To lift, it means to what? Application. Variety of application. Literally, figuratively. Right. You're NASA. Right? Unless you're going to go with Artemis. Right? So that word for now, Kahan bearing the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah stood firmly on the ground. What do you mean? You see, you're gonna need this NASA before you go to the other NASA, right? You're gonna need this in your heart before you go to the other one, right? You're gonna need what not to be like in the Rakia, right? Seriously, man, it's not a game. You better have this. It says, now the priest Kahan bearing the Ark of the Berith of the Covenant, the Arun, stood firmly. That word for firmly is kum. So you're gonna be a kum. That word for firmly is kum. Yeah, you kum. Yeah, exactly. That's what you are. You're a kum. Because you want to NASA Arun, and you want to be a kum with it. Right? That's exactly what I want to be. I want to be kum. I want to be a kum NASA Arun. That's what I want to be. I want to be a kum NASA Arun. That's what I want to be. And I want to hold the testimony that he's given to me, right? In my ark. That's what I want to be. To be firm, stable. I want to be stable. To be established. That's how you be established. To be fixed. Just like the 364-day cycle. Be securely and determined. That's the only way you're going to do it. I'm telling you, you got to be firm with it. To make ready. It says to make ready. Right? So this is the book of Revelations. This is the book of Revelations, chapter 19. Hazum, chapter 19, and verse 1. I remember I told you, I said that the only marriage you should be thinking about is the one to you. Right? And it says, Hazum, Revelation, chapter 19 and 6. Then I heard what seemed to be the voice of a great multitude, like the roar of many waters. Didn't all the waters stand up on one heap? And like the sound of a mighty peal of thunder crying out, Hallelujah, Halal Yahuwah, for Yahuwah our Elohim, the mighty, almighty reigns. Let us rejoice and exult and give him the kabod, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. She got kum. How you say kum? She made herself ready. And guess what? It was granted her to be clothed herself in fine linen, bright and pure. The fine linen is the righteous deeds of the Chdshim, because that's what the Malachim were dressed in. They were clothed in white, and it was bright like lightning. It was just like lightning. And they made themselves ready. And what happened after that? It means make ready. It means to set up, to establish, to prepare, apply. It means prosperous, right? Because when you hold the ark, the Arun, and you hold it with kum, right, and you nasa it, it said it'll make your life prosperous. Matter of fact, it'll make provisions. Right? When you start to hold it properly, when you hold the testimony in your heart, in your mind, right? It'll make your life prosperous, right? So this is the book of 2 Samuel chapter 6. 2 Samuel, Shamuel chapter 6 and verse 6. 2 Samuel chapter 6 and verse 6. 2 Samuel chapter 6 and verse 6. 6 and 5. 2 Samuel chapter 6 and 5. And David and all the house of Yahshua were celebrating before Yahuwah with songs and lyres and harps and tambourines and castanets and cymbals, right? Going crazy, right? That's what we're supposed to do during it right now, right? And that's what people will do in Chag Matsah, right? But what happened? What happened on the third day? What happened at night on the third day when he rose? What happened? And when they came to the threshing floor of Nikon, Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of Elohim and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. And guess what? And the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against Uzzah, and Elohim struck him down there because of his error, and he died there beside the ark of Elohim. Now you see why he told that woman not to clean them, don't touch me. Had she touched she touched the ark, or you mean touched Yahusha, after he rose from the grave, what do you think would have happened to her? He said, don't touch me, I'm trying to save your life. Because Yahuwah's anger going to be kindled against you if you touch me. You're going to mess the whole thing up. Mary Magdalene, do you know that? Make sure you go tell my disciples to meet me in Galilee. I'll explain it. I'll do great wonder works. So they can touch the ark. Because they're the priests, they're Kohanim. They're supposed to keep themselves from women. I have to fulfill it just like he says. Then after it's all revealed, then you'll understand it. Then once you understand it, then you understand how to carry the ark yourself. But right now, I have to explain this to them till they get power from on high. And once they get power from on high, then you'll understand completely what I'm saying. But right now, they don't know anything I'm saying. They don't even believe what you said when you came to the room. So therefore, being they ain't believe, so I got to explain to them the whole thing so they can understand how to deal with you after I give more information. That's how true. That's how much information come with this. And David was angry because Yahuwah had broken out against Uzzah. Right? You touched the Ark of the Covenant. You ain't supposed to. You ain't purified. You know why he died? Because he ain't purified himself the first 16 days. And he wasn't consecrated. Matter of fact, he didn't get the Ayul out of his tent. He didn't get the wickedness out of his heart and mind. So when the ark came for him to touch it and bear it, that's what we're doing right now. he couldn't touch it. And if you touch it the improper way, some things gonna happen to you. And he died beside the Ark of Elohim. Think about it, he would have handled. Why do you think they was able to handle Yahushua and see? And touch his hands and his feet? Because how come they didn't die? Because they were consecrated. And they kept themselves from uncleanness and all things sexual and all the things they were supposed to do according to the Kohanim priesthood when it comes to purification. That's why. That's why they didn't die. And Dawid was angry because Yahuwah had broken out against Uzzah, and that place is called Perah-Uzzah to this day. And Dawid was afraid of Yahuwah that day. You better believe it. Why do you think they were afraid when he walked in? Supposing they seen a spirit. They were afraid. Supposing they seen a ghost, like they see a ruach. And Dawid was afraid of Yahuwah that day. And he said, how can the ark of Yahuwah come to me? Because he wasn't purified. Right? Because he wasn't purified. He wasn't consecrated. But you see later on, when he came in there with the men and he went to the priest, and then he finally was able to touch the Qahalath bread. You see that? Why do you think Yahushua had to touch it? Get that bread. Guess what he said? So Dawid was not willing to take the ark of Yahuwah into the city of Dawid. He said, man, that thing killed people. So why do you think Yahushua told him to meet him in Galilee? Why do you think he told him to meet him in Galilee? Because he's like, man, look at here. I'm afraid to take this thing in Jerusalem. He's like, I got to suffer outside the camp. And everything, the whole ark is 7 miles from Jerusalem. Outside the camp. It ain't there. It's outside the camp. So he like, I'm not bringing that thing in Jerusalem. They'd kill everybody in there. Because he already knew it was going to kill everybody in there. That's why he had told him to meet him in Galilee, 7 miles away. He said, man, it's a 7-mile radius with this thing. This thing kill you, boy, you get a 7-mile radius. If it ain't 7 miles away, if the ark is not 7 miles away from Jerusalem, and you come, you know how they have the blast zone. If you ain't in the blast zone, you're going to get messed up because you ain't consecrated. You not consecrated. So it must have been something about Galilee that was really consecrated more than Jerusalem. And it was further outside the camp, away from the city. And he said, how can the ark of Yahuwah come to me? So Dawid was not willing to take the ark of Yahuwah in the city of Dawid, but took it aside to the house of Abyb the Gittite. Man, he said, I'm going to take that thing aside to somebody else's house. Whose house was Yahushua in? He was in somebody's house, remember? Oh, now you see what house he was in. When he was in the Gittite, he was in Galilee in somebody's house, right? They appeared to him in the house, right? 7 miles away, right? And the ark of Yahuwah remained in his house of Aydah, the Gittite, 3 months. Man, it was there for 3 months. Matter of fact, after 3 days, Yahushua rose, right? And guess what? You know how it is 3 months? 3 months. There's some things that happen in the 3rd month, too. There's some things happen in the 3rd month, too, with the children of Yashar in the wilderness. We're not going to get into that. And Yahuwah blessed Barak, Obed-Edom, and all his household. Isn't that what cool means? He said, you hold it firmly. But he hold that thing firmly. It means proper to prosperous, right? That's what coon means. He's like, man, he must have been consecrated enough to hold the ark. Because you are consecrated enough. How are you going to be able to, and guess what? And Yahuwah Barak, Obed-Edom, and all his household. And it was told King Dawid, the Yahuwah has Barak the household of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him, because the ark, the Arun of Elohim. Why? That's why you want to carry it. That's why you want to carry it on the inside of you. This is why he said, I give you the testimony to give to you, man. You got the ark. Man, your whole household going to be Barak. He must have been consecrated enough to hold it. He must have had his household in order like Cornelius. You know what Cornelius said? He said, your alms have come to Yahuwah Elohim in Acts chapter 10. He's like, go meet Kav and he'll tell you what you should do. You can hold the ark now. Oh, right, go to Acts chapter 10, right? No, we won't keep here. We won't go there. Yeah, let's go there. Right, he did that. Right, he said, what? Now you can hold the ark. You couldn't hold the ark before, right? In your household. Right? Acts chapter 10, verse 1. And at Caesarea there was a man named Cornelius, a centurion, what was known as the Italian cohort, a devout man, and who feared Elohim with his whole house, and gave alms generously to the people, and prayed continuously to Elohim. What was the household? Obed Edom. What is Edom? Esau. He allowed the ark to rest in Obed Edom's house. He's like, man, what in the world? Obed Edom prospering. And he got the ark in his house? Because he was the nations. What you call it? He was not other people. Right? You start to see this. Who feared Elohim with all his household and gave alms generously to the people and prayed continually to Elohim. About the 9th hour of the day, he saw clearly in a vision a malach of Yahuwah come and say to him, Cornelius. And he stared at him in terror and said, what is it, master? And he said to him, your prayers and your alms have ascended as a memorial before Elohim. And now send men to Jaffa and bring one Simon Kav. He is lodging with one Simon Tanner, whose house is by the sea. When the malach who spoke to him had departed, he called 2 of his servants and devout soldiers from among those who attended him. And having related everything to them, he sent to Jaffa, because he was ready to receive the ark. Because remember, he said, go and teach all nations, beginning in Jerusalem. But guess what? He was ready to receive the ark, though, in his house. You can't have that ark in your house and you ain't ready to have that ark in your house. You know what happens when you have that ark in your house? Right, this is going back to 2 Samuel 6 through 7. 2 Samuel, chapter 6, and verse 7. Going to verse 6 and 11. 2 Samuel 6 and 11. And it says, and the ark of Yahuwah remained in the house of Obed Edom of Gittite 3 months. And Yahuwah barak Edom all his household. Now you see why you want to count the first 16 days. Maybe you consecrate yourself for the first 16 days. Right? Then what do? You count for 49 days to Chag Shabuah. That's about 3 months, isn't it? That's about 3 months. Right? You count the Omer all the way to the 3rd month. And he says, and Yahuwah blessed Barak Obed Edom and all his household. And it was told King Malach Dawid, Yahuwah has Barak the household of Obed Edom and all that belongs to him, because the ark of Elohim. So Dawid went and brought up the ark from the house of Obed Edom to the city of Dawid with rejoicing, when those who bore the ark of Yahuwah had gone six steps. How many steps? They went 6 steps. He sacrificed an ox and a fatted animal. And Dawid danced before Yahuwah with all his might. And Dawid was wearing a linen ephod. So Dawid and all the house of Yasharal brought up the ark of Yahuwah with shouting and with the sound of the horn. They like, man, that thing make you prosper, man. They brought that thing in there. But notice what they had to do. Once somebody else got it, Obed Edom got it, and his house got brought. He like, man, go get that thing again. We got to bring that thing back. I was scared of it at first, but when somebody else tested it out, and I saw that he wasn't dead, and I saw that he was getting Barak, I said, I got to bring this thing back. And that's what happens. When somebody see you get Barak by Yahuwah, by having the ark in your house, they're going to see it, they're going to be like, man, I want to be Barak too. Why do you think he told Abraham and all nations of the earth going to be Barak through you? Why do you think he said that? Because they're going to see you got the ark. And he going to say, man, I want to be Barak too. Man, let me go get that ark too, right? Let me consecrate myself. Let me get myself together so I can hold the Ark of the Covenant too in my house. But let me show you if you don't. Hold it properly, right? Because that's the whole point of it. He said you got to do it properly, right? Because if you don't do it properly, these things going to happen to you, right? This is 1 Samuel chapter 1, 1 Samuel chapter 5 and verse 1. 1 Samuel chapter 5. 1 Samuel, Aleph Shemuel, chapter 5 and verse 1. And when the Philistines captured the ark of Elohim, they brought it to Ebenezer to Achad. Then the Philistines took the ark of Elohim and brought it to the house of Dagon and set it up beside Dagon. This is what you don't want to do. You don't want to take this knowledge of Yahushua Mashiach and put it next to another god. Because once you do that, it activates a defense mechanism in it. And that defense mechanism is not going to be pleasant to your inner man and to your body. And when the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face downward on the ground before the ark of Yahuwah, the Arun. So they took Dagon and put him back in his place. But when they rose early on the next morning, behold, when Yahushua rose, behold, Dagon had fallen face downward on the ground before the ark of Yahuwah. Why do you think the woman hit the ground when she saw the Malachite? That thing, she hit the ground because he was part of the ark. She's like, what? And guess what? And the head of Dagon and both his hands were lying cut off on the threshing hole. That's why you don't want to put him next to no idol in your heart. This is why the priests of Dagon and all who enter the house of Dagon do not tread on the threshold of Dagon and Ashdod to this day. And he tore that thing down. And the hand of Yahuwah was heavy against the people of Ashdod. This is why Dawid was wondering why Obed-Edom's house wasn't destroyed. He's like, what's going on? And he terrified and afflicted them with tumors. Now you see why you got to clean the filth out of your house from the first 16 days. The tumor, the sexual desires, the ill, the wickedness, all of the slander and all of the things, the gossip and all that stuff in your heart and your mind. These are all things that when the ark come in, that's why that's why he was telling us to cleanse ourselves to this day. Because these things are going to happen to you if you carry the ark improperly and you touch it. It's going to happen to you and your household and your whole city and your whole Aydah and your whole community and your body. He says, with tumors, both Ashdod and its territory. Now you see why Yahushua ran 7 miles away from Jerusalem. He's like, man, let me get 7 miles away. And when, I can't kill them all, right? I got to make sure they stay alive so they can hear the truth. And when the men of Ashdod saw how things were, they said, the ark of Elohim, Yasharal, must not remain with us. He's like, man, we got to get this curse out of here. And now when you start to see Yahushua as a curse, then a Barak, then you understand why. It could be a curse or a Barak for you. If you ain't carrying it properly, you ain't cleansing yourself properly, if you don't stay purified from all filthiness in the flesh and ruach, you got to make sure you always do that. It don't have to be a cog and a muad. It has to still be in your heart even after, even throughout the whole year, or these things will happen to you. It will turn to be a curse for you. The ark of Elohim, Yasharal, must not remain with us, for his hand is hard against us, his yard, and against Dagon, our God. This is why people die. They take this knowledge, this information, they mix it with their God, and then they give it to other people, and then they wonder why people die. And that's the reason why. Because you mixing it with your Elohim, your God, your worship, and your idols, and then you mix it together, and then you start to try to use it with your people. And the only thing it's gonna be used for is rebuke, destruction, sickness, right? That's all it's gonna be used for if you don't bear it properly. And that's why you gotta remove evil always out of your tent. Remove evil out of your tent. So they sent and gathered together all the masters of the Philistines and said, what shall we do with the ark of Elohim of Yasharal? They answered, let the ark of Elohim be brought around to God. So they brought the ark of Elohim, the Yasharal, there. But after they had brought it around, the hand of Yahuwah was against the city, causing a very great panic, and he afflicted the men of the city, both young and old, so that the tumors broke out on them. And people say, why are all these things happening in your city? Because you got the ark of Yahuwah is there. Because when the ark is there, and you don't return it back, but people got to start bearing the ark. That's how you get back. Once you start carrying the ark again, you start carrying Yahushua Mashiach and his understanding and the ark, then guess what happens? Then you can go back. You ain't never going to get sent back. They never going until people start consecrating themselves the first 16 days. Start purifying themselves and get ill out of it. Get all the gossip and slander out of your heart. Get all the hatred. Right? Get all this stuff out of your heart. Then you can bear the knowledge of Yahushua Mashiach. Give alms, show kindness, do all these things. Then you can bear the ark. Then other nations are going to be like, man, we got to get this thing up out of here, right? But after they had brought it around, the hand of Yahuwah was against the city, causing a very great panic. And he afflicted the men of the city, both young and old, so that the tumors broke out on them. So they sent the ark of Elohim to Ekron. That's 3 times. How many times did Qahalath deny Yahushua? How many times did he deny the ark? Because remember, you got to deny it, you send it away. How many times he did it? 3 times. Did he not? He denied it. I couldn't tell. I don't know that thing. I don't want that thing here. I don't want that thing here. No, I don't want it. And guess what? He wept after he left. But as soon as the ark of Elohim came to Ekron, the people of Ekron cried out, I don't know Yahushua Mashiach. You know how Qahalath was when the multitude came? I don't know. He cursed. And Satan was like, cursed be you. Right? He was celebrating. Cursed be you, Qahalath. And now you see why Yahushua had to explain to him 3 times in the house again. And they have brought the ark of Elohim of Yasharal to kill us and our people. That's why Qahalath didn't want to die. I'm not dying today. You're trying to kill me, ain't you? Multitude came. You know the multitude came the last time. They sent therefore and gathered all the lords of the Philistines and said, send away the ark of Elohim of Yasharal and let it return to its own place. And that's when Yahushua went in the grave on the 3rd day, on the first day of Chag Matsah, before the sun went down, before that Shabath. Man, put it back. Man, get that thing up out of here. That's what Qahalath said. I don't want it. Because he knew if he bore that ark, he wasn't strong enough. If he'd have bore that ark, man, he would have been dead. He'd have been plagued. Because his heart wasn't right. He couldn't bear it. He couldn't hold it. And this is the problem when you don't have it. And guess what happens? That it may not kill us. Say what? So that's what's going to happen to you. If you hold it and you don't hold it properly and you deny Yahushua Mashiach, what do you think going to happen to you? You can't hold that next to your God, your idol. You're going to get tumors on your body. You're going to get sicknesses. The hand of Elohim was very heavy up there. The men who did not die were struck with tumors. Now you see why. That's Yahuwah's mercy. But you should be dead. And the cry of the city went up to Shamayim. Yahuwah said, yeah. Now they scared. Now I know you fear me. The only reason he did it just so they could fear him. Why do you think Qahalath cried after he denied him 3 times and Yahushua looked at him? Yeah. Remember that? Now I know you fear me. It says the ark of Yahuwah, verse going to chapter 6. It says, and the ark of Yahuwah was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. Now you see why we got 7 feasts. Chag Matsah. Now you see why you're going to need it. You need the ark. You need the ark inside of you. He said, why you need it 7 months? Because what's the first day of the 7 months? I don't need this feast, these 7 horns and 7 eyes. Yes, you do. You need it. And the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners and said, what shall we do with the ark of Yahuwah? Tell us what shall we send it? Tell us with what shall we send it to its place? And they said, if you send away the ark of Elohim of Yasharal, do not send it empty. That's why he told us to not appear before him empty. But by all means, return him a guilt offering. You got to send him with a gift. Then you will be healed. Uh-oh. You got to send it away with a gift. And it will be known to you why his hand does not turn away from you, his yard. And they said, what is the guilt offering that we shall send return to him? They answered, 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice. That's 10. Right? That's 10. According to the number of the lords of the Philistines, for the same plague was brought on all of you and the lords of the Philistines, Lord and your masters. So you must make images of your tumors and images of your mice and ravish the land and give kabod to Yahuwah or Yasharal. Perhaps he will lighten his yard from off of you and your gods and your land. Why do you think when Yahushua rose from the grave, he said, man, make sure when it does return, make sure you return it with a gift. Because remember, they killed him and threw him in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. And then he rose on the 3rd day at night. But he made sure when they rose, it came with a gift. When he was returning it back to the Shalakim. And what did he return to the Shalakim as a gift to them? Eternal life. He gave it to him. It was eternal life. How do you know this? Go in 1 Samuel 6 and 10. Go into verse 10. Go into 6 and 10. And it says, and the men, the men did so, and took 2 milk cows and yoked them to the cart and shut up the calves at home. And they put the ark of the Arun of Yahuwah on the cart and the box with the golden mice and the image of the tumors. And the cows went straight in direction of the house of the sun, the Ba'ith Shamash. When was the sun created? Oh, the sun was created on the 4th day. Oh, you mean on this day? What do you call it? 4th day of Chag Matsah. Well, I ain't saying that, but I'm saying the 4th day of creation. But it's the 4th day of the 7th day we eat Chag unleavened bread. Along one highway. Why do you think Yahushua ran 7 miles away? He was trying to show you. See, I'm trying to show you. I ran 7 miles to show you it's the 4th day, just so you understand on the 4th day the Shemash was created, and they're going to send the ark back with a gift, which is eternal life, to you. Lowing as they went. It was low. It was low. Right? That thing was heavy, boy. You couldn't carry that thing. Amazingly, the cows and the animals couldn't carry it, but the priests could. That means they were strong, boy. Think about it. Think about how strong the Kohanim were. They could carry the ark and bear it up. NASA. Remember how many rocket boosters they put on there? So how heavy you think it was for them cows to be? Them things are strong, but it was struggling. But we just carried that thing, march with it. You know that's how strong you are when you purify yourself. You see how strong you can be? If you purify yourself, you be strong. You get the ayol out of your tent, you can bear it up. These cows, these animals couldn't even do it. They was struggling. They turned neither to the right or the left. See, he's like, man, this thing heavy. And the master of the Philistines went after them as far as the border of Abyb Shamash. Now the people of Abyb Shamash were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley. When they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark, they rejoiced to see it. Now you see why in the 7th month, it was with them for 7 months. And they returned it back. The cart came to the field of Yahushua. Oh. To the field of Yahushua at Abyb Shamash and stopped there. That's why you think Yahushua told him to go to Galilee. He said, there, I'm going to meet you there. Oh, you mean the house of the sun. Because when he appeared to them, how did he appear in the house when he was in the room? He morphed in the room like the sun rising. He was like, man, supposing they seen a spirit. And a great stone was there, and they split up the wood on the cart and offered the cows as a burnt offering to Yahuwah. And the Levites took down the ark of Yahuwah and the box, or you mean the money chest, that was beside it, what they had put in there, which were golden figures, and set them upon great stones. And the men of Abyb Shamash offered burnt offerings and sacrifices on that day of Yahuwah. When the 5 lords of the Philistines saw it, they returned the day to Ekron. They were like, finally, that thing was done, right? But all that took place, right? This is 2 Samuel chapter 15. 2 Samuel chapter 15, 13 through 37. And a messenger came to Dawid saying, the heart of the men of Yasharal have gone after Absalom. Man, they went after Absalom. Then Dawid said to all his servants who were with him at Jerusalem. So who was Absalom? Because Dawid was scared to bring the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. So who, all the messengers came to Dawid and said the hearts of the men of Yasharah had gone to Absalom. But you know Absalom's name means father of peace. Why do you think Yahushua was in the house as far as Galilee? Man, everybody, they done went after Absalom. And Dawid said to his servants who were with him in Jerusalem, arise and let us flee, or else there will be no one to escape. There will be no escape for us from Absalom. When he come back in this city with the Ark of the Covenant, with the Ark, Arun, right? And he holding it firmly, he Kum, and he Nysan, and he bearing it up. He said, go quickly, lest he overtake us quickly and bring down the ruin on us and strike the city with the edge of the sword. Now you see why Dawid was scared to bring that ark within the city. But at the same time, Dawid still had to flee and go out quickly. The same way Yahushua and his disciples had to leave out of Jerusalem because they were scared of the Yahudim. In the very same way, we got to take our Pesach in haste and do it quickly. And even he told Judas to do it quickly. What you get ready to do. All this takes place in one verse. And the king's servant said to the king, behold, your servants are ready to do whatever my master the king decides. So the king went out and all his household after him. His whole household. And the king left 10 concubines to keep the house. And the king went out and all the people after him, and they halted at the last house. How far did Yahushua leave Jerusalem? He went 7 miles. And he said, man, make sure you meet me in Galilee. I'm going to meet you in this house over there. And once that ark coming in, well, you're going to be Barak. And all his servants passed by him, and all the Kerethites and the Pelethites and all 600 Gideonites who followed him from Gath passed on before the king. And then the king said to Achad the Gittite, why do you also go with us? Go back and stay with the king, for you are a foreigner, and also an exile from your own home. He's like, man, you an exile, you a reject. Guess what? You came only yesterday, and shall I today make you wander about with us? Since I go, I know not where. Go back and take your brothers with you, and may Yahuwah show steadfast love and faithfulness to you. But Aydah answered the king, as Yahuwah lives, and as my master the king lives, wherever my master the king shall be, whether for death or life, there also will your servant be. Because where was he at? He was outside the camp. He was outside the camp. He was outside Jerusalem. And he said, man, wherever you go, for life or death. Because remember, when you go outside the camp, that's life or death. You don't know what's going to happen to you. He said, I'd rather be like that than to be inside of there. I'd rather go meet you in Galilee. Where you at? In Galilee. All the Yahudim trying to kill you. And you getting ready to meet with the Shalakim there and everybody. He said, that's where I'm going to be at. That's what he said. And Dawid said to Aydah, go, then pass on. So Aydah the Gittite passed on with all his men, and all the little ones who were with him. And all the land wept aloud as long as the people passed by. And guess what? And the king crossed the brook Kidron. Oh, you mean Nakala Kudrum. You mean the dark waters, right? You know that place where all that dirt at and all that filth, right? And all your junk. No matter of fact, he jumped in the brook Kidron. He crossed the brook Kudrum. You got to cross the brook Kudrum. You got to throw all your stuff in there. Amazingly, who did that? Oh, the priest. The priest who cleansed themselves for the first 16 days. They dumped all the stuff in the brook Kudrum. You mean Nakala Kudrum. And all the people passed on toward the wilderness. Everybody went across the brook Kudrum. So what you did, right? And you think about that. We think about all these things that transpire up until this point. All this is a pattern. Right? It's 2 Samuel 15, 24 through 37. We almost finished with this. And Abythar came, and behold, Zadok came also with all the Levites, bearing the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah. And they sat down the Arun of Yahuwah until the people had passed out of the city. Say what? They had the ark. Dawid and them had the ark. They were like, they had the ark. They were going out of the city from Absalom. They had the ark. And the Levites carrying that thing with the, the animals were struggling. They were just carrying it. And he says, and they set down the ark of Yahuwah until the people had passed out of the city. And then what they did when they crossed Jordan too? Why do you think he was telling his disciples to go to Jerusalem? What do you think he was telling them to go do? Beginning at Jerusalem, to make sure you go carry the ark and get the people out. Go get them out of Jerusalem. Because what was going to happen to Jerusalem? They were going to be destroyed. They were coming to take down Jerusalem. They were coming to, because he said, man, remember Yahushua said, don't wait for me, wait for your children. The time gonna come, they're gonna lay you all flat to the ground. And them Levites and them priests that cut them deals, guess what? I'm gonna send my Shalakim to carry the ark with them, and they're gonna tell you about me, and they're gonna get you out of the city before it happens. That's why he told them, you in the field, don't go back. You over here, he said, flee to the what? Flee to the mountains, right? Then the king said to Zadok, carry the ark of Elohim back into the city. If I find favor in the eyes of Yahuwah, he will bring me back and let me see both it and the dwelling place. Now he tells him to send it back to the city. Why? He said, he might bring me back and let me see it again. But if he says, I have no pleasure in you, behold, here I am. Let him do to me what seems good to him. So this is the mindset you got to have. Even though you may carry the ark of Yahuwah, and you may carry it and bear it. And it may be that Yahuwah may take you back to the place where you belong. But he said, if he don't, he said, let him do to me what seems good to him. And he said, let me fall into the hands of Yahuwah. And that's how you got to be with your life. The king also said to Zadok the priest, are you not a seer? Go back to the city in peace with your sons and Hamiz and your son and Jonathan the son of Abythar. See, I will wait at the fords of the wilderness till word comes from you to inform me. So the Zadok Abythar carried the ark of Elohim back to Jerusalem, and they remained there. They all stayed there with the ark. But Dawid went up the ascent of Mount of Olives, weeping as he went, barefoot. Oh, you mean like the priests, like the Kahan? They were all barefoot with his head covered. He said his head was covered. And all the people who were with him covered their heads. And they went up weeping as they went. And it was told Dawid, Anaphel is among the conspirators with Absalom. He's like, man, they all conspirators. And Dawid said, Yahuwah, please, turn the counsel of Anaphel into foolishness. So that word for barefoot is your cuff. Right? You know you got your cuff. It means barefoot, bareness, being unshod, unsandaled. They were barefoot. Right? Your cuff. That's why when they were barefoot, they were cuff when they were walking across Jordan. But that's all a part of it. Verse 32, while Dawid was coming to the summit where Elohim was worshipped, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat torn and dirt on his head. And Dawid said to him, if you go with me, you will be a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, I will be your servant, O king, as I have been your father's servant in the times past, so now I will be your servant. Then you will defeat for me the counsel of Anaphel. Are not Zadok and Abythar the priests with you there? So wherever you hear from the king's house, tell Zadok, Abythar the priest, behold, their two sons are with them there, Ahimaaz and Zadok the son of Jonathan, Abythar's son. And by them you shall send to me everything you hear. So Hushai, Dawid's friend, came into the city, just as Absalom entered Jerusalem. So that word for head cover is kafah. It means to be covered, to cover, to overlay. What was on top of the ark? It was a covering, a lid. It was Arun. It was a lid. It was a lid on it. To cover, implication, to veil, to encase, to protect. To protect what? It was a money chest. It was a valuable, it was a treasury chest. It was inside the ark, and he had to cover his head to protect the ark, what's in it. And by covering his head, it was a lid on it. It was a lid, right? This is Yeshayahu 52, 6 through 11. Therefore my people shall know my name. Therefore in that day they shall know that it is I who speak. Here I am. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who bring good news. You mean barefoot. Why do you think he was on the mountain barefoot? Why do you think Yahushua walked out of the tomb barefoot? Why do you think the priest, the Kohanim, walked on the ground barefoot, going across into Yarden? Going across the Yarden. You say, why is this important? Right, so this is the book of Matthew. You say, why is this important, right? So we got, this is the book of Matthew, I think it's 10. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 10. Verse 1. Because everybody thinks that everybody has it, believes they have it. It's more of it. It's a different type. Matthew chapter 10 and verse 1, and it says Matthew chapter 10 verse 1, and it says. And he called to him his 12 disciples, and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal every disease and every affliction. How were they able to do that? Because they gave him a gift. He said, when you send it back with a gift, he said, you be what? You be healed when they send the ark back with a gift. And that gift was eternal life. The knowledge of Yahushua Mashiach. That's how they was able to heal people, by the knowledge of Yahushua Mashiach. And that's what healed them. The name of the 12 Shalakim are these. First, Simon, who is called Qahalath, Andrew, his brother, James, son of Zebedee, Euchanan, his brother, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, tax collector, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon Zealot, and Yehuda, who betrayed him. These 12 Yahushua sent out, instructing them, go nowhere among the Goyim, and enter not in the town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal, and proclaim as you go, saying, the kingdom of Shamayim is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, and cast out spirits, the demons. You receive without paying, give without pay. Why? Because it's a free gift. It's a free gift. Acquire no gold or silver or copper for your belts, or bags for your journey, or 2 tunics, or sandals, or staff, for your laborer deserves his food. Food. What food is that? Bread, lakam. And wherever town and village you enter, find out who is worthy in it, and stay there until you depart. And as you enter the house, greet it. Why do you think Yahushua went in the house? He was showing them on this day. He said shalom. He greeted the house. He morphed in the room though. Poof. He morphed in the room. They walked knocked on the door. He morphed in the room though. And if the house is worthy, let your shalom come upon it. Shalom. That's why he appeared to them. But if it's not worthy, let your peace return to you. That's why he plagued the place when the Ark of the Covenant came into the city of Dagon. He said, man, he took his peace away from them. And you know what he said? And if anyone will not receive you or listen to you, we don't want the Ark of the Covenant. We don't want the Ark of the... Ekron say, we definitely don't want it. They will not receive you. What happened? What happened when they don't receive you? Well, listen to your words. Shake off the dust of your feet when you leave the house of that town. What happens after that? Truly, I say to you, it will be more bearable than the day of judgment for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah than for that town. Because you know what's going to happen when that ark? I'm going to plague this place. And guess what he says? Verse 16, behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Beware of men, for they will deliver you over to the courts and flog you in their synagogue. And then they gather all the people inside of the kingdoms that had the ark, and they all were meeting together. Like, man, what we going to do with this ark? Well, you got to get this thing up out of here. Same thing. Because you carry it. And you will be dragged before governors and kings for my sake to bear witness before them and the Gentiles. Going. And then what he said? He said they're going to be a witness against you. He said, I already know y'all stubborn though. When they deliver you over, do not be anxious, however, how anxious you are to speak or what you are to say. What you are to say will be given to you in that hour. So what does this got to do with anything? Because when they were sent out, they had an understanding that they had to do, right? Because they were sent out barefoot. You say, why were they sent out barefoot? Because that's what the priests were. Why do you think Yahushua was walking out barefoot? They had no shoes on their feet. They were sent out barefoot. And everything that they did was all according to the pattern. Because everything they did, he said, why are they sent out barefoot? Because they all is according to the pattern. All right, so this is the book of Yuchanan. This is the book of Yuchanan, I think it's Mark. Go to Mark chapter 6 and verse 7. Mark 6 and 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 7. And he called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2. And when the ark, within the ark have what? What the ark had? 2, it had 4 rings. He sent them by 2 by 2. Just like the Malachi came to the tomb. You know, the Malachi came to the tomb to carry the ark. And he gave them authority over unclean spirits and charged them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not put on 2 tunics. And said to them, wherever you enter the house, stay there until you depart from there. And in this place, in any place you receive you, now notice in this, they got sandals on their feet. Now this is before Yahushua. They all got sandals on their feet. He says, well, why they got sandals on their feet now? Whenever you enter the house, stay there until you depart from there. If any place you will receive you, you will not listen to you, then he says, when you leave, shake off the dust off your feet. Shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them, right? So you look at all that, you say, so why they got that? So this is Luke chapter 9, verse 3. Luke chapter 9 and verse 3. Luke 9 and 3. Luke 9 and 3. Luke 9 and 3. And it says, and he sent them out. Take nothing on your journey, no staff, no bag, no bread, no money. Do not have 2 tunics. And whatever you enter, stay there. And from there depart. And wherever they do not receive you, when you leave that town, shake off the dust of your feet as a testimony against them. Right? Notice how everybody has a different account. Right? We went through Mark, you went through Yuchanan. Right, did we go to Yuchanan? We went to Mark, went to Matthew and Luke. Chapter 9, verse 10, right? And all these things, they kept saying what to bring. Because all these were a part of Pesach. Because they got to leave in haste, right? But at the same time, why would they walk around barefoot? Right? That's the whole point. Right, this is the book of Yeshayahu, chapter 20, and verse 1. Right, I'm going to show you something. Yeshayahu, chapter 20, and verse 1. Yeshayahu, chapter 20, and verse 1. It's only 5 verses. In the year that commander, Yeshayahu, chapter 20, and verse 1. It says, in the year the commander-in-chief who was sent to Sargon, the king of Syria, came to Ashdod and fought against it and captured it. And at that time, Yahuwah spoke to Yeshayahu, the son of Amoz, saying, go, loose the sackcloth from your waist. And then what he did on Pesach. And guess what? And take off your sandals from your feet. And he did so, walking naked and barefoot. Why do you think Yahushua appeared to them and washing their feet? Well, he took off his cloth in the middle of the night. They were like, why are you doing that? Why you took off that and start washing my feet? And he says, and then Yahuwah said, as my servant Yeshayahu has walked naked and barefoot for 3 years, as a sign and a portent against Mizraim and Cush, so shall the king of Assyria lead away the Mizraim captive, the Cushites, exiles, both the young and old, naked and barefoot. He said, what? He said, that's another reason why I was naked and barefoot on Pesach. But then guess what? With their buttocks uncovered and nakedness of Mizraim. Now you see why he was naked. You say, why he naked? Why he doing that? You ain't going to understand it until I do it. Because you're going to get taken into Mizraim again. I'm just showing you where you're going to go. I'm just showing you where y'all going to go. Then they shall be dismayed and ashamed because of Cush, their hope, and Mizraim, their boast. Why? Because now you're ashamed. Because it's just like a naked man with some with some barefoot and the buttocks uncovered. He said, now you're ashamed now. I was like Adam, you know, naked as a servant, Abyb, but now you see you're ashamed when you go into Mizraim. When you go into Cush. And guess what? And the inhabitants of this coastland will say in that day, behold, this is what happened to those in whom we hoped and to whom we fled for help to be delivered from the king of Assyria, and how shall we escape? If you neglect so great salvation. Right? We're going to get to that. So that word for publishes, this is how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him in that book of Yeshayahu, chapter 52. How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of him who publishes, that word for publishes, Shema. It means to hear, to listen, to obey, to hear, to perceive the ear, to listen, to give heed. That word for publishes is Shema, to understand language, to obey, to be obedient, to cause to hear, to summon, to cause to hear intelligently. And this last one right here, to be a witness. To be a witness. Right? So that word for good news is basar. So why would he have, it says, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news. That word for good news is basar. Why is it good news of basar? To bear news, bear tidings, preach, what they call Qahalath, to show forth, to gladden with good news. Why do you think Dawid, when he got the Ark of the Covenant back, what did he do? Man, he danced with all his might. That man was like, man, look at here. The Ark is back. I'm going to be Barak. My house going to be Barak like Obed Edom. And I'm dancing around. Well, I know I'm going to be Barak. If he's going to be Barak, I'm going to be Barak too. To bear news, to be fresh. That is cheerful. right? When they come back, he's like cheerful, man. This thing done came back, right? Right. This is the book of, so it says, how beautiful are the feet of those on the mountains are the feet who bring good news, who publishes shalom, who brings good news of happiness, who publishes salvation. That word for salvation is Yahushua. Yahusha. Yeshua, I'm sorry. Yeshua. That word is Yeshua. To bring what? Publishes salvation. Yeshua. Welfare. Prosperity. How you gonna get prosperity? The ark gotta be back. When the ark come back, you gotta hold it firmly too. You gotta be a kum. Arun Nasa kum. You gotta bear up the ark. Victory. Something saved. Deliverance. Health. It come with healing when you come back with a gift. And that gift, for the wages of sin is death. That's why they got all that death when they had the ark. But the gift of eternal life is health and prosperity and peace and salvation and welfare, right? So you look at Yeshua, Yad equals to 10, Shan equals to 300, Wu equals to 6, Ayin equals to 70, and Ha equals to 5. How you spell it? Equals to 391 equals to 13. Oh, you mean the same 13 as Yahushua, who's going to lead them? He said, just like you were with Mashah, so will it be with you. And he's going to bring Yeshua, salvation, to the people. Yahusha, Yeshua. Yahusha, Yeshua. He's going to bring deliverance. And it says aid. Victory. Victory. So that word for it says depart, verse 11 of that same book. I hope we know this. Go out from there and touch, right? He say touch what? Touch no unclean thing. Why? What happens when you touch something unclean? You ain't gonna be able to hold the ark. How you gonna touch the ark? You gonna be able to hold the ark now? I'm gonna hold the ark of Yahuwah. He said the Arun of Yahuwah inside of me. This and the testimony he's giving to everybody right now, because it's a free gift too. I'm giving it to you. And then you touch some. That's why he say touch no unclean thing. Come out from among them and touch not the unclean thing, right? Because you are Kohanim. You can't touch anything unclean because you bear something. You bear something, right? So that word for touch no unclean thing is naga. It means what? To stricken. To be stricken. That's what. To be what? To cause a touch. Don't touch. Don't strike. To lay hand upon. Right? That's lay hand upon. Don't do it. You unclean, don't be laying hands on nobody. Lie, right? Don't lay hands on me. Right? Don't touch. No, that word for unclean is tameh. Touch no unclean. That word for unclean is tameh. That means impure, unclean, ethically, religiously, ritually. Right? We got all those things you got to do. Tameh, polluted, defiled. Right? Now you see why it's not right for a son of your code to touch a woman as she's been defiled. And people be like, so, right? And people be thinking like adultery. I said, okay. He said, if you get married and you leave your husband and you go be married to somebody else and you try to return back, he said, won't that land be greatly defiled? And he said, that's an abomination inside of you, and guess what you will be? Right? So these are all the truths that will make you free from your understanding. Right? But he said, touch no unclean thing and I'll receive you. And that's not the only unclean thing. Right? You get dead animal, dead carcass, right? You can make yourself unclean, but these are all a part of priesthood practices, because priesthood practices was always about washing, just balance, just ephah, and just bath, right? We were always about cleaning ourselves and making sure we're cleaning all the time. If you're not a clean person, if you're not a person who likes to clean and stay, you say OCD, you need to be OCD. You know, if you say, I don't want, you OCD, I say, I know. You gotta be OCD. Either that or you're gonna make a mess. You know, you say OCD. Right, so that word for depart, go out from her, touch no unclean thing. Go out from the midst of her and purify yourselves, right? You who bear. Oh, you mean Nysan? You mean like the priest? The very same thing. They had to bear up the ark and carry it. Nysan. Who carry up and take up, to be lifted up. You lift up, right? You carry it. You carrying the ark continuously. You bearing it continuously. Who bear the what? The vessels. The kali. That word for vessels is kali. The utensils. Didn't what? Mashah anointed? He anointed utensils and all the things in the house. Implement, right? Vessels, receptacle, vessels, boat, paper reed, something prepared. Apparatus, furniture. Furnish, you bear up the furniture. You know, they carried the ark. Right? They carried it. Vessels, weapons. It was a weapon. Right? Armor bearer, artillery bag. You who bear the vessels, it means also utensils, dress, vessels of weapon. You know what this word kali is at? Right, this is the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter 22. Man, I've been talking for a long time, but we're going to talk about this real quick, just so that people can understand what's going on. Right, so people can understand what's going on. So who was supposed to bear the ark? Right. This is Devarim chapter 22, verse 5. A woman shall not wear a man's garment, neither shall a man put on a woman's cloak. For whosoever does these things is an abomination to Yahuwah, your Elohim. So that one. So what do you mean a woman shall not wear a man's garment? So that word for wear. Right, I don't got this on the slide, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So that word for wear. In Deuteronomy 22 and 5, the word for wear, a woman shall not wear that which pertaineth. That word for wear that which pertaineth is kali. Same word. Same word. Apparatus, dress, vessel, weapon, armor bearer, artillery, furniture. Right? Because who was supposed to bear the ark of Yahuwah? The men, the priests, the Kohanim of Louis. They supposed to Nysan the Arun Nysan, and they supposed to coon it and stand firmly on dry ground so the people can go. That's why he had the Shalakim touch the ark when he rose from the grave. And that's why he told the woman, you're going to have to wait to understand this. Right? They're going to have to do it. And guess what? That's what he was talking about. You who, it says, purify yourselves, you who bear the vessels of Yahuwah, the kali. Right? The utensils, the implement, right? The hunting of war, right? Implement. Utensils. He said, you got to bear all of this. Pertaining to the pot, psaltery, sack, stuff, vessels, weapons, whatsoever, right? Well, this is the book of Psalms, chapter 40, and verse 13. 13 through 7. Psalms, Tahalim, chapter 13, 40, chapter 13 through 17. For evils have encompassed me beyond number. Yeah. For evils have encompassed me, or afar, me beyond number. My iniquities have overtaken me, and I cannot see. They are more than the hairs of my head, and my heart fails me. But be pleased, Yahuwah, and to deliver me. Yahuwah, make haste to help me. That's why we eat Pesach in haste. Let those be put to shame and disappointed altogether who seek to snatch away my life. Let those be turned back and brought to dishonor who delight in my hurt. And let those be appalled because of their shame who say to me, Aha, aha. But may all who seek you rejoice to be glad in you. May those who love your salvation say continually, Great is Yahuwah. What do you mean, salvation? He said, those who love your salvation, great is Yahuwah. Say continually, Great is Yahuwah. Say it. As for me, I am poor and needy, but Yahuwah takes thought for me. You are my help and my deliverer. Do not delay, O my Elohim. Right? So that word for salvation is Tashua. 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 Right? And it start with a two. You know, sign, exit, signature, four corners. That's why he said, my enemies encompass me. That means in all four corners. In all four corners, my enemies encompass me, so he called it Tashua, because they got to put a ta in the middle, two in the middle of it, Tashua. It means salvation, deliverance. Salvation, spiritual sense, to rescue. I'm talking about from all four corners. From all four corners. Safety, deliverance, victory in all four corners. In all four corners. And guess what? Two is spelled, Teal is spelled, 2 is 400, Shun is 300, U is 6, Ayin is 70, and the Ha is 5. We use the 781. So what do you see there? 781. Right? That's what everybody sees. But then you see this. 8 plus 7 plus 8. 7 plus 1 equals 8. Right? You see 8 plus 8. And then you see the 16. Because you know what happens in the first 16 days? You're supposed to purify yourself on Chag Matsah for the first 16 days. And then after the 16th day, then what? You get prepared to receive the ark, to touch the ark, to handle the ark. And you get to see the ark. And then guess what happens? For all 7 months. You get to hold it, carry it. You get to walk with it all the way to the 7th month. Matter of fact, if you purify yourself, you continually practice it, you can carry it all the way to the 7th month. And it's a continual thing. Right, we almost finished. I'm talking. This is Book of Psalms, Tehillim 116, 1 through 9. I love Yahuwah because he has heard my voice and my pleas for mercy. Because he inclined his ear to me, therefore I will call on him as long as I live. The snares of death encompass me, the pains of Sheol lay hold on me. I suffered distress and anguish. Notice has encompassed again. Then I called on the name of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah, I prayed, deliver my soul. Gracious is Yahuwah, righteous. Our Elohim is merciful. Yahuwah preserved the simple. When I was brought low, he saved me. He said he'll save you now. Return, O my soul, to your rest. That's what today is, right? Day of rest. For Yahuwah has dealt bountifully with you. For you have delivered my soul from death, and my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling, and I will walk before Yahuwah in the land of the living. I believed, and even when I spoke, I am greatly afflicted. I said in my alarm, all mankind, all Adam are liars. All of them. What shall I render to Yahuwah for all his benefits to me? I will lift up the cup of Yeshua and call on the name of Yahuwah. And I will pay my vows to Yahuwah in the presence of all his people. Why do you think he was lifted up? Why do you think Yahuwah said, son of Adam, be lifted up, I'm going to draw all people to myself? He said, man, I'm going to lift this cup right in front of all the people. And guess what? Now I'm telling you to what? Drink. This is my blood, which was shed for you. Do this in remembrance of me, in the sight of all the people. That's the cup he wanted us to drink. Precious in the sight of Yahuwah is the death of his Chdshim. Huh? Precious in the sight of Yahuwah is the death of his saints. Yahuwah, I am your Abyb. I am your Abyb. How many times Yahushua cried on the cross? Twice. And guess what? You got to see. The son of your maid servant. Who was he born from? Maureen. That's why he said, I said them all mankind are liars. Because I was born from a woman, a virgin, Abyb as a servant, just like in the garden. And guess what? You have loosed my bonds. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving and call upon the name of Yahuwah. I will pay my vows to Yahuwah in the presence of all his people. What do you think he was doing? He paid the price for us. He was paying all our vows we ain't never keep. He said, why he say Abyb, Abyb? I'm going to pay all the vows. You know all them vows that people ain't keep? Yes. 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 Con. Yes. He said, you know all the ones they broke? He said, you know what? Till sickness and in health, till death do you part. You know what he did? Till death do you part. Because you know they ain't none of them do it. That's literally what he just did. None of them do it. Now here go my cup. You know, this is the real cup. This is the real cup. Why do you think he was in the disciples with it in the fourth day? Why do you think he met with them and broke bread with them again? Here go the real cup. This is the body which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. I pay my vows to Yahuwah in the presence of all his people, in the courts of the house of Yahuwah, in the midst of Jerusalem. Praise Yahuwah. Right? That's why he died right there. That word for saints, precious in the sight of Yahuwah is the death of his saints. That word for saints is kasid. Precious in the sight of Yahuwah is the death of his faithful ones, his kind people. His kudash one, his faithful ones, his merciful ones. He said, if you kill a person that's merciful and kind and faithful, that's a precious treasure to Yahuwah. Because that's what he wants. So when if somebody take your life for that, he said, that's a precious in the sight. He said, I am your Abyb, the son of your maidservant. That's Amah. That word for maidservant is Amah. It means maidservant, a concubine of humility. And people say, I want a son. But then you understand the type of son, the type of person you have to be to carry Yahushua Mashiach on the inside. You got to be humble. It says maid servant. Female servant, yeah, a maid. A bondwoman, maid servant. He said, you got to be a maid. You got to be an Abyb. You got to be a maid, a shifka, in order to carry Yahushua Mashiach. To even carry his ark, Arun, you got to be humble. And to carry it continually, you have to be humble and low. This is Hebrews 9, 1 through 10. Now, even the first covenant had regulations of work for worship of the earthly place in Qahalath, for a tent was prepared, the first section in which were the lampstand, the table, the bread of his presence. It's called the Qahalath place. Behind the second curtain was a second section called the most Qahalath place. That's why you got to be Qahalath and everything. Having a golden altar and incense, and the ark of the Arun of the covenant, covered on all sides with gold, in which the golden urn holding the manna. On Harun's staff that budded, the tablets of the covenant, that's the 10 Commandments. Above it, the cherubim and the kabbalah overshadowing the mercy seat on his shadow. Of these things, we cannot now speak in detail. He said, I can't go. There's a lot of stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just wiping a little bit. It ain't even a lot. These preparations having been made, the priests go regularly into the first section performing the rituals. Let me just read that. About the rituals you got to perform. But in the second, only the High Kohen goes. But once a year, and not without blood, which he offers for himself for the unintentional sins of the people. That's why Shaul said, if you get circumcised, Mashiach will profit you nothing. Because if you do anything intentional, I assure you, this thing is going to be intentional on you when you get punishment. But this Kudash Ruach indicates that the way into the Kudash place is not yet opened as long as the first section is still standing. He's like, that thing got to go away. According to this arrangement, because they put parentheses, according to this arrangement, gifts and sacrifices are offered that cannot perfect the conscience of the worshiper. That's the whole point. Your 12 cranial nerves, your mind, your makashba, your yetzer, your imaginations, and how you use your mind and how you think and what's in thoughts in your mind has to go. It has to go. Because where the ark at? In your body. And you can't have things in your thoughts and have it in your body. But deal only with food and drink and various washings. That's why I said it's the cup. Right? People say washings, right? That's this natural body. Regulations for the body imposed under the time of Reformation. Why? Because emergence only a good conscience. But you still have work to do. So that word for reformation is diorthosis. It means to straighten. What do you think this is? This is called reformation. We're straightening out the actual way you got to do it. Thoroughly. You got to do it thoroughly. Like this ain't, oh yes, 30 minutes. No. It's so much stuff you got to do, you have no idea. Rectification, restoration. This is what you call restoration. Work. You've straightened out the path now. Okay, now we got to do, now I'm starting to understand. This thing got to go, you see all this cleansing and purifying and all this stuff you got to keep out of your body to carry the ark. And if you don't, you get tumors. You get plagues. Deuteronomy chapter 28. Dabarim chapter 28 in full effect if you don't purify yourself correctly. Reformation, right? That's what this is. Dead Sea Scrolls 4Q 257. These are the paths in the world to enlighten the heart of man. Straighten out in front of him all the paths of true justice. What do you think straighten out means? Reformation. This is restoration. Straightening out the path. This is reformation. Straighten out in front of him all the paths of true justice. Establish in his heart respect for the precepts of Elohim and the Ruach of meekness. And patience, because everybody ain't going to do it. Generous compassion, you got to have mercy. Because precious in his sight are the death of his kind ones, his merciful ones. In his heart, respect for the precepts of Elohim with the Ruach of meekness and generous compassion, eternal goodness, intelligence. You got to have intelligence to do this. Understanding, potent wisdom which trusts in all the deeds of Elohim and depends on his abundant mercy. How precious are the people and the death of those who are kind and merciful, of the conceived ones and the faithful ones. Why do you think he's going to be a precious thing when you die? To you who? It's like, that's one of my merciful, kind, and faithful ones. I cannot, I'm watching that whole time you leave. That's how he watched his son the whole time he left. When you get like that, he going to watch that whole thing. Who was involved in this one? Oh, man. He going to watch every last one of y'all. He going to be like, who was involved in this one? I'll mark all y'all, but man, that was a good one right there. And then he going to mark you down. A ruach of knowledge and all the plans of action. Enthusiasm, decrees of justice, and set apart plans with firm purpose of generous compassion. See, this thing's still on. We'll see. With all the sons of truth. Magnificent purity which detests all unclean idols of careful behavior and wisdom concerning everything. Of concealment or concerning the truth of the mysteries of the knowledge. These are the foundations of the Ruach of the sons of truth in the world. And the reward of those who walk in it will be healing, plentiful peace, and long life, fruitful offspring with eternal, everlasting barak, eternal enjoyment and endless life, a crown of bold and majestic raiment and eternal life. Right? So what's all this? However, the ruach of deceit belongs greed, sluggish in the service of justice, wickedness, falsehood, pride, haughtiness of heart, dishonesty, trickery, cruelty, insecurity, impatience, much foolishness, impudent enthusiasm for appalling acts, performed in lustful passion, filthy passion, the service of impurity, blasphemous tongue, blindness of eyes, hardness of heart, hardness of hearing, stiffness of neck, hardness of heart, in order to walk in the path of darkness and evil cunning. Right? And that's all a part of it, right? Skipping over it, right? This is Psalm 32, 6 through 9. Therefore, let everyone who is conceived offer prayer at the time that he may be found. That's what I wanted. Right? That's Psalms 32 and 6. So of course, you know that word for conceived, the word for godly is conceived. It means faithful. It means the same word. Faithful, godly, faithful ones and kind ones. Right, so this book of Yuchanan 1, 2, 24 through 28. Let what you've heard from the beginning abide in you. And if what you heard from the beginning abides in you, then you too will abide in the Son and in the Father. And this is the promise he has made to us, eternal life. It's a reformation. It is a straightening out. I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you, but the anointing you received in you abides in you. You have no need that one teach you. But the anointing as it teaches you about everything and is true is no lie, just as it has taught you abide in him. Now little children. Little children, abide in him, so that when he appears, you may have confidence and not shrink in shame at his coming. Sirach 3, 17 to 23. My son and daughter, go on thy business in Aydah, humbleness, meekness. So shall I be beloved of him that is approved. The greater thou art, the more humble thyself, and thou shalt find favor before Yahuwah. Many are in high places of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the Aydah. For the power of Yahuwah is great, and honor with the lowly. Seek not out things that are too hard for thee, neither search for things that are above thy strength. Right? You gotta be strong to carry the ark. You gotta be real strong to carry it the proper way. But what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence. You gotta continue to think about it in order to carry it. For it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret. Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men and women, women and children, and Kohanim, and women at the tomb, and when they first didn't understand him on the third day. But it's the fourth day. They can understand. But we look at all these things, look at Yahushua Mashiach, look at the true Ark of the Covenant, look at the true Arun that men have to bear up. The one that you have to hold firmly, kun, et amuna in him. That's what amuna means firm. And to walk in righteousness and purity of mind, and purity of thought, and purity of understanding. So this is the fourth day of Chag Matsah. And to be Aydah, to be one of his kind ones, his faithful ones, is the one that he will look at when he said, though our outward man perish, we have another building of Elohim that's being built. And our inner man is renewed day by day. In morning and evening. I say evening, Abyb and Bakar. Abyb and Bakar. Abyb and Bakar. And then 7. And people say, why did Yahushua run 7 miles away from Jerusalem? And these are all part of the transformations in oneself. Knowing that these things are true, and we should understand how to walk, and understand what it's like to understand to walk even as he walked. Who did no sin and no deceit was found in his mouth. For the meek Aydah shall inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth.